Okay, good evening. Good evening to listeners in the UK. Good afternoon to listeners in the US. Just gone 3 p.m. US Eastern Time. Just gone 8 p.m. here in the UK. This is Paul English Live. We're on WBN 324 for the next couple of hours and other assorted and interesting streaming outlets. Welcome to the show. Well, it's a beautiful sort of autumnal evening here where I am. Not so beautiful in other parts of the world where other people am. We'll be talking about that probably quite a lot this evening. I'm looking forward to being joined by the usual crew. We have Patrick here and Paul and hopefully Eric Von Essex will be joining us at some point, unless, of course, he's out doing the gardening here on this wonderful autumnal evening. He might be, you know. There we go, the familiar drum roll which signals the end of the intro. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've been having a good week. I've had a very challenging time, but we won't be going into that too much this evening. This is almost like a little bit of a break for me. Things have been quite heavy the past week. It's life and all that kind of stuff. They've been very heavy, actually, for a lot of people all over the place. You're probably aware of that. If we get certain guests coming along or certain people dropping by, I'm going to be very interested to hear what you have to say about what's been taking place in North Carolina. It's obviously, I think it's obvious, part of a much, much bigger picture, although it's a massive part of the picture, where all of these sorts of ridiculous things that have been taking place. Over here in the UK, we've had the closure of the last coal-fired power station. I want to talk about that because we all love coal, don't we? Although we're not going to be allowed to love it anymore, it would seem. And we've also had a steel plant closed, the largest steel plant in the UK. And call me a conspiracy nut. I don't mind, actually, because conspiracy nut is actually probably quite high up in the integrity stakes these days, considering the calibre of the oafs and the traitors that are in charge of our nations, respectively. But it seems to me that things are really hotting up as they seek to disintegrate the remnants of Christian nations or Western Christian civilization and disable any opportunity we might have for living the way that, you know, generally we've always lived, I guess. So I think this is definitely part of that bigger picture. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. Yet again, just by way of a shout out, we're running out on WBN 324. So hi there, everybody on WBN 324, going out worldwide through many, many other accumulated networks. We're also on Rumble, and I always mention Rumble for the simple reason that if you want to chat with us, if you want to interact, if you want to type things, if you want to even call us, I'll come to that in a second, but if you want to chat or write anything in, Rumble's the place to do it. So if you head on over to paulenglishllive.com, you'll see the Rumble link there on the left-hand side of the page. I don't know what it looks like on a phone. Probably looks all messy, actually. It's not designed for phones, but then neither am I. I'm not really one of those sort of phone-type people. I do have one, but so if you click on Rumble, you'll get on over there and you can join the crew. I think you might need, in fact, I'm pretty sure you will need a Rumble account if you're going to type in there, but they're free, like everything else is in life. And, well, not everything, but a lot of things these days. So if you want to head over there. If you also want to call in, you also will find a link to the call-in studio on paulenglishllive.com. It's towards the bottom of the page, and it's a link, and it takes you to paulenglishllive.com/call, and you can come into the studio and join the other reprobates. Well, not cheek by jowl. We've got a couple of studios here for sound mixing reasons and all sorts of things. And that's how you kind of interact with the show. So quick shout out to everybody who's in Rumble. We're kind of quiet to start off with by our usual hullabaloo standards, but we'll get rolling as we move on through. Today's show image, I better leave that for later. It's actually completely incongruous. It's got very, very little to do with anything that we're likely to be talking about this evening, believe you me. Anyway, just thought I would introduce the rest of the crew. Now, let's see. Paul wanted to be introduced last week, so let's start off with Patrick. How about this? Patrick, how are you? And welcome to the show. What's your day like?
Oh, thank you, Paul. My day is quite good. It's nice weather. It's a bit cool. It's kind of an English-looking sky at the moment, but...
Is it?
Get it? Well, by that I mean it's a bit overcast. So it's good, though. I like it. I like this time of year. You can get work done outside and not have bugs and any of the overly hot type weather. So it's good.
No, that sounds good. We're having a very un-English sky here today. I think the weekend was a bit grisly, actually, but today it's been beautiful. The temperature's dropped a bit, but it picked up today. We always like to talk about the weather, everybody, by the way. It's just as we sort of find our feet in the show. We just have a bit of weather banter because it's always the right thing to do. But it's beautiful. In fact, my son just dragged me out just before the show, about half an hour ago, as the remnants of the sun were setting. He said, "Dad, come and have a look at the sky." So I do that. We just sometimes go off and look at the sky, and a delivery man came by from one of the local supermarkets, was dropping off food for the next door neighbours. And he looked at us. I said, "Well, we sometimes just like to come out and look at the sky to make sure it's still there." He said, "Oh, it's still there, all right." I said, "It is, isn't it? This is all jolly good." So we had rather a beautiful evening here. It's very dark now. The sun has fully set at 8:08 here in the UK. So we're all bracing ourselves for the onslaught of winter. But right now, autumn's not too bad. And we've also, by way of very interesting news on the domestic front, which I know most people tune in for, they're very keen to know what's going on in my house. We've been taking a lot of wallpaper off the walls. In fact, we've got so much of it. We're going to have to burn it a lot. And whenever I set a fire around here, it always makes me very, very popular with the neighbours. I don't know if anybody else out there does that sort of thing. But if you do, in England, it can sometimes go a bit wrong because we're all a bit cheek by jowl, unlike you, Patrick, with the vast wild of Wisconsin all around you and huge distances where you probably don't see people for hours on end. Here, everybody is very, very close. And I think I've only done about half a dozen fires here in the last 20 years. But on 2 occasions, I received a stern letter from the local council. "We have been informed by one of your neighbours of a fire and smoke. Please don't do this," that kind of thing. So I think there's days on which to do it. And as long as it's not windy, and currently the weather here on the south coast of England, which can be at times very windy, not hurricane strength, obviously. I know that's very much in the news at the moment, but it's very benign. So I'll be lighting a fire at some point soon. Just thought I'd let you know, Patrick, and everybody out there. So
well, that's quite cold. You're lighting a fire, but then again, this time of year, probably by the end of the month, I'll be having a fire in the fireplace. Usually around the middle of October, all of the leaves have fallen off the trees, and right now they're about to peak. The colors.
Oh.
So quite.
Well, were we talking about states last week? And I said I wanted to live in Vermont. I don't know if I want to live in Vermont.
It's looking very Vermontish here.
Is it looking Vermonty? Great. Anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, go and look at some pictures of... Yeah, Vermontular. Yeah, well, absolutely. It's quite Vermontular. Well, I'm pleased to know that. It's very encouraging. If you don't know what Vermont looks like at this time of the year, go do a search and have a look at some breathtaking photographs. The whole thing just goes a golden sort of orangey, reddy. Oh, it's just fabulous. It's absolutely amazing. And I kind of relate to this time of the year more than any other. I had a good friend. Actually, I've probably still got this good friend. It's just that we've not spoken for about 12 years, but there's no reason to assume that hostilities have arisen between us. But his wife used to get very depressed at this time of the year. I couldn't figure it out. He says, yeah, she hates autumn. I said, really? She said, yes, it just makes her very miserable that the summer's over. And I thought, I think I might have said this last week. I think autumn is a very, to me, it's the archetypical English month. Winter, of course, is just winter. Probably most people think it's like this all the time, but I do like the autumn. I do like a bit of autumn. Somebody else who might like a bit of autumn, who's also in this neck of the woods, is Eric von Essex, who is in the studio, and I see now has sprightly unmuted himself. Eric, good evening. How are you? And welcome to the show. Ooh, hang on just a minute. I know why we can't hear you. Just hold on. Now, hey, Eric, welcome to the show. There's always one button that I forget. So, hi, how are you? Welcome to the show. Hello, Eric. Hi, good evening. Hi.
Hey, Eric. Hello, Patrick. And, do you know, it was, I went for a ride down the Lee Valley today.
Right.
To a shop called Home Bargains, you see. Mm-hmm. And I expected the Lee Valley, after all the rain that we've had, to be like a quagmire. So, you know, I took the bike that's got mud guards on it. I was absolutely shocked at how dry it was. You know, the pathways there, because it's a big, huge wooded area.
Yeah.
And in 1963, what happened? It was a quarry area, very industrial, and they cleaned it all up, planted loads and loads and loads and loads of trees, and it's a huge forest area now, beautiful. And there's been sightings of Bigfoot around there as well.
What, a Lee Valley Bigfoot?
A Lee Valley Bigfoot. Yes. Several, apparently. So, and I was cycling. I mean, you see very few people. I mean, I cycle for a couple of miles down there. There's this long sort of straight road. When I say road, there's no traffic is allowed in there. And I'm cycling along on my bike. And I thought, well, if I saw a Bigfoot now, nobody would believe me, would they?
Well, in Lee Valley, it's stretching it a bit, really. So what county is Lee Valley in? He said, geographically ignorant of where it is. Which county is Lee Valley in?
Just over the border of in Essex. And
so it is in Essex?
It goes into Hertfordshire. Well, it's in Essex, Hertfordshire. It goes from London right the way up to Bishop Stortford. It's a huge area, yeah.
All our American listeners will know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They will. But, Lee, it's spelled L-E-A, isn't it, in this case? L-E-A, is that right?
That's right, yes. Yeah. L-E-A, Lee Valley, yes.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, when you're near sort of habitation, yes, you see quite a number of people. But once you get about, a couple of 100 yards in, then you don't see anybody. It's empty. It's lovely. It is. You know, you're cycling along, and it's all full of lakes, and because where the quarries have been, you know, filled in with water and that. Yeah. So it's nice, you know, and there's lots of ghost stories around there, and of course I went to Waltham Abbey, which is famous because that's where Harold is supposed to be buried. You know, King Harold. All right. Okay.
Is it really?
King Harold.
Now that's a very good question, Patrick, isn't it? Would you like to answer that question, Eric?
Well,
no.
I don't know because I didn't take my shovel with me to dig him up, you see. So allegedly he's there.
I don't think Patrick wanted you to dig him up. I don't think Patrick wanted you to dig him up.
I didn't ask that.
No. Although if you're thinking of having a go, let me know. I've got a spade somewhere. Actually, where Harold was... So Harold... we'll do the English history bit for a bit here. So Harold was the King of England, or the leader of the English, at the time of the defeat, unfortunately for him, at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. And I actually drove past Battle less than 2 weeks ago, and I go past it quite regularly, and it's worth going over there just to see the site and to find out. I'm one of these guys, when I go to these sites and I know what they did wrong, I'm sort of looking, going, what? And I'm just talking to the heath, going, why did you run down that hill? What? Why did you? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, actually that whole week, or about the 10 days, which culminated in the defeat, unfortunately, we're still full of seething resentment about it to this day. It did change world history, actually. It did, because the knock-on effect through England was massive. But a week prior to that, Harold and his army had been up at Stamford Bridge, which is in York, fighting off those bloodthirsty Vikings, and they won. And whilst they were up there with his army, and I don't know what the numbers were, it's thousands, but not necessarily tens of thousands, but it's certainly thousands of men, because we're talking, 1,000 years ago or so there weren't as many people around. Whilst that was going on, King William from Normandy decided to enforce his claim to the crown of England, because he felt it was his contractually for all sorts of reasons, which are not worth going into, and which I don't even know right now. But he brought over an invasion force a week later. They got wind of this. They knew it was coming. So they walked. This is an amazing thing. No one's actually filmed the walk. They walked from Yorkshire, from Stamford Bridge in Yorkshire, all the way to the south coast in Battle, which is near Hastings, of course, hence the Battle of Hastings. It probably wasn't known as Battle at the time. It's just been named that because of this event. And they walked all the way down England, being fed, I think, and probably watered by the people of the land as they went. And they then fought another battle. So they won the first one, and realistically, they should have won the second one, but they got carried away a bit, unfortunately. And they all ran down the hill. They had the high ground, and they were winning. And because they were winning, they all got a little bit eager, and they ran down the hill to confront them more fully, and that was the end of them, because they were up against armoured knights on horseback, which was the main decisive factor, the technology of war at the time. And the whole of England changed because of it. We then got the Doomsday Book, world's first tax database. Hurrah! We were the first with that enslavement thing. Actually, probably not. There are probably those things in Babylonian times and other things, but it was the first one, obviously, for us, and it's very well known. And so Harold, unfortunately, took an arrow in the eye, which must have been absolutely... And he died on the battlefield from that injury. Because obviously it probably went into his brain or part of it or something like that. And that was that, unfortunately. And then Eric's now making these wild claims that he's buried somewhere nearby. But maybe he is Eric. I don't know.
His relics.
It's a long way from Battle, but the thing is that in Battle, apparently, the Normans didn't allow the English to bury their dead. And they left the skeletons there, and they weren't buried for about 100 years after.
Really?
So they left the corpses on the site to show, And the reason they broke rank during the battle was because it wasn't only English. There was tribes from Scotland and Ireland and Wales who spoke different dialects, and they didn't understand, because you never break rank, because it's the oldest trick in the book. The enemy comes around the pincer movement, and that's exactly what they did.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
so there you go. The command structure was not fully in place. I couldn't work under those language restrictions. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
That's right. Well, it's accents and things like that. Because what people don't realise is that the tribes of Scotland, Ireland and Wales, they knew that if England fall, they would fall. So they needed to come over and help prop us up. And there were some Vikings on our side, believe it or not, that fought on our side.
Well, that wouldn't be the first time that happened, really. I mean, I know after Alfred defeated them and then forgave them all, they all became Christians. They all thought he was amazing, which he was, actually. He was actually great. He was just great, was Alfred. And that's why they called him that. But hold that thought, because we can return to little historical things as well. We've got obviously recent history, which are like battles over the past week or so. There's all sorts of dreadful and indicative things taking place. But I think we might have given him enough time now to sort out his technical trousers. I know he was the last on the scene last week to say something. So, Paul, are you lurking or are you ready to shout a lot into the microphone? Hi, welcome to the show, mate. How are you doing?
Soapbox deployed.
You've got it out, have you? I can see that you're about a foot taller now and shouting at the mic. Yeah, no, good to hear from you.
Yes, I pulled it out of mothballs, which is where it's been sitting since last week. But crazy things have been going on in this country. The entire eastern seaboard pretty much got pummeled by a hurricane. 300 plus thousand people without power in Georgia alone. It cut a swath through about the middle of the state. And what was just released today or yesterday, the power companies down there don't even have the spare parts to repair the grid damage because all of their spare transformers, wire spools, this, that, and the other thing was shipped off to Ukraine so the Russians could blow it up.
Yeah, so say that again. Stop. Say that again, nice and slow. I know what you said, but I think you really need to say that again. Say that again, nice and slow, like you're talking to a 6-year-old, because I think that's massively important.
The power companies that serve the areas that are blacked out don't have the supplies and equipment, the spare parts to repair the grid because their spare parts were shipped to Ukraine.
Well, my oh my.
Nice of them.
Do you think, Paul, that there was possibly some pre-planning of something like that? What do you think? Or are you just or are we just conspiracy nuts? What do you think?
I'm just going to be sitting back here in the corner playing my harp, listening to you guys talk for the rest of the show.
No, you're not.
My HAARP.
All right, you're behind it all, are you? It's you,
right? But on a lighter note, and I know we spend a lot of time talking about banking and global currencies and things like that. Yep. And we have spent time talking about the CBDC, which everybody knows is the central bank digital currency. I would like to pay a little homage to the DCBP on today's show.
And of course, we now have to ask you what you're talking about. So the DCBP, which sounds great. Paul, what is the DCBP? Pray tell.
Because we've been getting reports here. I don't know if they're factual or not. I'm sure that you will confirm or deny. The DCBP is the delightfully cheeky British people. Because of the debacle.
We love this. Me and Eric are very happy.
Registering chickens, and everybody registered not only their chickens, but their frozen chickens that they bought at the grocery store, and they crashed the system.
That's how we do it.
Delightfully cheeky British people. Okay?
Yeah.
You want our information? We'll give you all of our details.
Oh, I think we need to form the DCBP. It's such a mouthful, but it all rhymes. You know, it's great. That would have slipped my mind. I've got some notes somewhere, but I've just been so hectic today for show prep that it's barely happened. But it doesn't matter with such a cheery and erudite crew that we get here. It's always good stuff. But I was with somebody earlier today, an elderly lady who's not so well, recovering from certain things, and. We were having a chat. She's wonderfully sort of lucid and chatty about all sorts of things. And I brought this up. I said, have you heard about the chickens? She said, no, should I? I said, well, you're about to. And I ran through the story that you'd run through. It's absolutely fantastic. So, by way of sort of recap, or, you know, what's the phrase, Paul? Circling back on the conversation.
Yes.
With regards to this newly formed massive organisation, which we're all in, naturally, the DCBP, all you Brits over here. The government wants to sort of register every chicken. I heard, Paul, that some people had gone out Yeah, just follow it. They'd bought the chickens from the major supermarkets, registered them, then ate them, and then said that they died. So there might have been an absolute boom in roast chicken dinners over the past few days, and I think I'm gonna have one too. So we probably need to get a link about how we can completely mess them up. This is so wonderfully subtle and beautiful, and is absolutely the way. I love stuff like this. I really do. It's absolutely the way to deal with them, is to make their systems even more dysfunctional than they already are. Even though we know that they're going hammer and tongs to wreck us. So, Eric, how do you feel now about knowing that you're a fully paid up member? Because there's no membership fees at the moment. We'll have to work on that. That you're a member of the DCBP. Are you quite happy about that?
Yes, it's a bit of a mouthful to remember, isn't it? But it sounds quite good, doesn't it? Because we've got a government that suffers from common sense deficiency syndrome. And that is, they don't realise that an action creates a reaction, and the reaction is a direct result of the initial action. In fact, they're bonkers. So I like this, where you just bombard a website. Why not? And just we should do it if we could find a way of doing it with ULEZ. Completely screw it up. Just keep bombarding it with stuff. If anybody's got any good ideas with ULEZ, how we could screw that up for the American.
Well, you know what they are. I mean, I don't know. For listeners in North America and elsewhere outside of England, ULEZ is this ultra low emission zone. That's what it stands for. Ultra low emission zone. If you drive your car in there, in and around London, because global warming, everyone. Sorry. Anyway, sorry about that. It's difficult to keep that one, isn't it? Yeah. They want to charge you. Actually, I had to plan a trip to go up this week, which I couldn't make for all sorts of just other really serious things come up. It was unfortunate because I was due to go and go to a commemorative meeting for somebody who was very important in my life, and I just couldn't make it because unfortunately I've got very serious things happening here. But I was trying to going into London now, you have to drop your own battle plan, don't you? You've got to get in, you've got to pay things, and you've got to get out safely. Seriously, it's mad. And the ULEZ thing, there's a whole website about it. So it turned out that I was going to drive into the Greater London area. It's just about everything within inside the M25, it appears to me, which is a massive area. And if I take my car in there, my wonderful diesel poison-emitting thing, which I love, I have to pay £15 each day that I'm in there. And I'm sat there scratching what little bits of my anatomy are left to scratch, thinking, if you actually live and work in there and you're tooling around all the time in your car, I think my maths are right, and you're working 5 days a week, that's £75 a week, that's £300 a month, if I'm not mistaken, to poodle around at 3.2 miles per hour in traffic jams for the privilege of being able to get to work and back. So I'm assuming less and less people are doing it. But of course, the whole reasoning behind it is a pile of, well, insert your expletive there. It really is.
Excrement.
Excrement will do.
But they're going to charge
fine.
electric cars, which are supposed to be eco-friendly. So work that one out. So, they're going to charge them 15 notes a day as well. So, and that says, what is it? Ultra low emission zone. So what's next? Will it be vegetarians? Will they be charging them for their, emissions that they're creating with their lentils and things like that?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, if they're, they said, didn't they, that cows are supposed to emit methane out of their bottoms. Well, I suppose we must be sort of close. I mean, I'm not as large as a cow. Well, not yet. You never know, do you? But if that's the case, it's going to be terrible for all the vegans around here. Sorry, there's a tax. There's a tax on your bottom.
Yes.
And maybe they'll have to come up with a bottom meter, so that they can actually do it. Well, we should all get one, and then they all break. We're going to do something similar as we did with the chickens.
Oh, no, it'll be PAYF, won't it? Pay as you fart.
You know what? DCB people... Yes.
Sorry,
okay.
we're 30 minutes into the show, and the first fart gag has come out. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it.
It's not bad.
Very
I think that might be a record for you. I think that's quite long, 30 minutes. It's not too bad,
Yes.
Eric. I'm quite impressed, actually. But this DCBP, this means I can say things like, you're listening to the voice of the DCBP. This is a bit of a mouthful, actually. Can we call it the CBP? Oh, it's tricky to say that. It's tricky. It is. It's a tricky little tongue twister, is that? But the DCBP is the organisation that we're all already in, and that's how we do it. So I like being a delightfully cheeky British person type. This is great. It's fantastic.
I think delightfully is important.
I think
really
delightfully
do.
is. I was thinking of knocking it off, but I just thought, no, it does need to be there, because the use of that word, of course, indicates the cheekiness as well. We are delightfully cheeky. Hello.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Well, and I think Eric, he needs to be the MOFF, the official Minister of First Farts, or Minister of First Fart Jokes.
That got a laugh. Oh boy, Eric, when are you going on tour, Eric? I need to know when you're going on tour. I'll come. I'll give you a $5 and heckle you from the back.
I haven't thought of it really. Yeah, I might be going up to that thing in Suffolk rather.
Yes.
Not this Sunday, the Sunday afterwards. Are you going there, Paul?
I would like to. I'm coping with, as you know, I'm coping with a rather stressful situation at the moment. But my modus operandi is to stay busy, keep working and ploughing on. It's the best sort of tonic for the sort of little pressures I'm facing at the moment. They're more than little, and it seems to be working. So my intention is, yes, to go. Things could be very different a week on Sunday, so I don't really know. But if they're reasonably stable, then I will, because we've got to keep on pounding away at these things. What was the name? No, this was the bowler-hatted farmer. Is it Mike? Was that his name again? Yeah?
Mike, yeah, that's right. They're talking about was it, I don't know much
electric
about
vegetables.
farming.
Electric vegetables.
Electric vegetables.
Yes.
Yes.
Electro-veg.
That might put a smile on a few people. You know, you have a sort of a marrow, electric marrow, and that might put a smile on a few faces.
I can see where this is going.
I'm talking about the culinary side of things. I'm not
really.
I'm not
you?
Yes. Would I come out with smut? Come on.
No. It's always a bit of a shock when you do. You're always such a sweet talker.
But no, it's about electrifying your vegetables, and you don't need fertilizer.
No.
And apparently, it's so good. YouTube have knocked a lot of their videos off because they must be getting somewhere near the truth. And apparently, what's happened is we used to grow vegetables that way, but then the fertilizer people thought, we got to sell fertilizer. Well, and that took over. So it's a bit like the big farmer, you know.
Yeah.
We used to cure people, but we no longer do, you know. So
well, what it's now going to be, isn't it? I know what you just said with the big farmer, but it's now going to be big farmer spelled BIGFARMER. They're going to be known as big farmers, aren't they? Because the things, they're electric vegetables, is actually electroculture, ether EMF, and Mark Anthony are correcting me properly. Well done, chaps and chapesses. Fantastic. It's electroculture, if we're being accurate about it, but we are the delightfully cheeky British people, so we like to twist all these words and muck about with them. So I like electric vegetables, and I think the big farmers, FARMER, is where we're going to go. And you know, I suppose people with electric cars could use all that. Actually, they're not electric cars, are they? I don't like that as a terminology. They're battery cars. I think this is key, actually. Cars. They're battery cars, and you know. I know this is linked into much of the hullabaloo and the devastation that's taken place in Carolina with this hurricane and everything that's been wiped out, and what Paul was referencing there a few moments ago about everything going off to the Ukraine, ho-hum, you know. But that whole situation with it, with what they're doing, the idea of burdening us with electric cars really does need to be seen for what it is, because, you know, when you think about them, and I don't spend too much time thinking about them. I mean, when they first came out, I was slightly enamored of them because, you know, I'd mentioned here that we went off to see the MDI car, the one that runs on compressed air, about 20 years ago. That was fantastic in a way, even though, and that one hasn't done very well. That is literally zero emissions. Not only is it zero emissions, if you drive them around a city that's got bad air already, like I think Mexico City, were they world champions of the most toxic and heavily polluted air at one point? They might not be anymore. Those
Probably,
little cars, yeah, they actually clean the environment up. Not only do they not emit stuff, they actually clean it up, because the air that's coming out of the tailpipe goes through this filter system, and it's actually purer than what you actually put in. So how about that? You want that? No, they're not. We know why they're not interested in these things. They're not interested in anything that they can't put a meter on in the chain of control. Exactly. That's what they do in everything. Every single aspect of our life has to have the position of, oh, you'll need a regulator there. That's just going to be me, actually. And, of course, it's a very important job, so I do need to be paid quite a bit, you know. And to pay my salary, we'll have to put a tax on these sorts of cars. Really? Yeah, so that's exactly what's going on. Yeah.
That's what killed Nikola Tesla when he built the, what was it, Wardenclyffe Tower?
Yeah.
That was to broadcast free electricity to the people, to the surrounding area. And he had visions of building multiple towers. And as soon as the guy that funded him, I forget, it was either J.P. Morgan or somebody, as soon as they found out that what he was working on, they weren't going to be able to charge for, it would just be freely available, they cut off funding. They destroyed his reputation, they raided his lab, and they burned his tower. They basically destroyed him.
Is it not? They did. I'm fully aware of that. I mean, because he built that big transmitter, wasn't it, with money from Westinghouse, and Westinghouse probably got some severe letters from the usual sort of crew. But isn't there a pattern? There's kind of a blueprint for all of these things. Anybody, whether it's in the form of Nikola Tesla, who was obviously an inventor, a technologist, an understander of the high level of life, i.e., everything is basically vibration and frequency and sound and light, all of that kind of stuff. If they provide things that take us directly to the wealth, and they do it in such a way that there is no requirement for a financial system to sit between us and the wealth, they come, unfortunately, to a very bad end, because you get to see the artificial and bogus nature of our life through the work of people like that over and over again. This is the blueprint, is that everything is designed to maintain a control structure, when in fact we've been furnished with so much abundance that we don't need one. Yet we have this coterie of people that have become, I guess, behaviorally accustomed to being like that. They come from long lines of people who've been doing this sort of nonsense for thousands of years, and they can't think of a world without them being in charge of it. Whereas, in fact, the Almighty is in charge of it and has just said, look, I've given you plenty of brains and there's loads of resources. Just keep these laws. It's all going to work out great. So,
well, there's a chap on Richard Vobe's show, several months back, quite some time ago, and it jogged my memory. He was an inventor, and he invented a device. Well, he didn't really invent it. There was a device that came out during World War II that was fitted on the fuel lines of hurricanes, because they wanted to make them more economical with fuel, because obviously fuel was a bit of a shortage. Yeah, and they could go twice the distance. And it was a gizmo that I believe, I don't quite know how it worked, but I know you put it on your fuel line. It wasn't hard work to do it. I think any DIY person could actually do it. And they came out in the 70s, maybe 80s, and it was so good you could almost double your fuel economy. And councils adopted them and put them on their council vehicles, and they were saving money. And then suddenly they were taken off the market, and suddenly they clamped down on them, saying that they were bogus and they had negative publicity and that type of thing. And it completely destroyed this chap's business. But they were proven to work because they did independent tests in laboratories, and the government did independent tests, and they actually did work. Well, they worked on Hurricane aircraft during World War II, so there's no reason why they couldn't have worked, on vehicles.
No.
What, 30,
Absolutely
40 years later? And does anybody else remember that? Anybody in chat? It was I don't know what the
something
gizmo
to do
was
with
called.
heating up the fuel to make it aerosolized
No.
more
No,
properly?
No.
I don't think so.
No, what it was?
I don't know.
I believe what
I'll
it
be
was
straight honest
was
with
I believe it was a magnetic field, and what there was a tube that you put over a fuel line on the car, and it had powerful magnets in it, and that it would magnetically structure the fuel and align the molecules in the fuel that made it burn more efficiently. It's more effective if you do it on either a vinyl, a PVC, or a rubber gas line. If you put it on a metal gas line, of course, the metal is going to act as a magnetic keeper, and very little of the magnetic flux will actually get at the fuel. But if you put one of those things on like a rubber gas line or something like that, what it does is it restructures the fuel, it increases the octane, and it increases it modifies the way it burns, so you get more BTUs out of it. And it's simple magnetism. North Pole, South Pole. And as the fuel flows through,
that's it.
It gets charged.
Why did they ever get rid of leaded gasoline?
Maybe because it was highly receptive to the magnetic field. I don't know. They were saying that lead was toxic in the atmosphere and that it's bad. And maybe there is some evidence for that. I don't know. That. Yeah, they were saying that. We don't know anything now. We don't believe anything now, do we? Nothing that we've been told.
Yeah, it just reminds me, I had gone out to, I was working on a book project, and we were photographing historic houses, and one of the owners, he had one of 4 Bugattis made by the son of Enrico Bugatti. It was called an Atlantic, and he was telling me he had to fill it with leaded fuel, and there was one shop in town that still had leaded fuel. So it's interesting to me how that evolved, from leaded to unleaded.
Yeah.
I think there were specific nefarious reasons for doing away with leaded fuel. I don't for a moment believe that the narrative that they gave us was the whole thing. I mean, look at the paint, the house paint and stuff that had lead in it. But they said that children would eat the chips and then they would get lead poisoning, and it would interfere with their brain's development and growth. But then they load vaccines with mercury, which they later rename thimerosal once people get wind that there's mercury in the vaccines. Mercury is infinitely more damaging to the brain than lead ever could be.
Yes.
And
what about fluoride?
But it also doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier too easily. Like I used to break open vials of mercury and just play with the stuff. But
it's fascinating, isn't it? Isn't it amazing stuff?
Oh, it is. It's cool.
I remember it at chemistry. It was the only chemistry lessons I really liked. There was that. And what was that sodium stuff that you mixed together? It just exploded. And of course, that was one of the better chemistry lessons. Stop blowing things up at the back there. Bang! It's just fantastic.
Boom. Things.
Just a quick shout out into the chat, everyone, because we've had a few comments coming. First of all, quick shout out to Maleficus. Hi, welcome, Maleficus.
Hey.
I saw his comment. Yeah, it's good. You can always hop on in if you feel like it. The call link's there if you want to say a few words. Maleficus, when we were just talking about farming a little while back, he mentioned a gentleman whose name may be unfamiliar to many called Jorian Jenks, Jorian Jenks. Anybody heard of him? You heard of him?
No.
No? Heard of him?
Only in the chat.
Right. Very interesting. There's a book of his that you can get and grab and download. I've got a copy, but I never got around to reading it. He came from a long line of farmers. He was involved, I guess, with the nationalist movement over here in the 30s. And he came out with structures for really growing food. He knew what he was talking about. So, all this sort of natural way of really organizing things. So, as we've mentioned here before, many, many times, the solutions exist. they're not applied, or as soon as somebody starts to apply them, in come the controlling class, and they tell you that they have a better way to do it, and it will involve, of course, a little bit of taxation, but it's all for everybody's good, and everything's going to work out great. So Jorian Jenks, he's worth looking up. So thanks for that, Maleficus. You're welcome to hop by if you want to say a few things, do a few card tricks, anything like that. Also, lead. Going back to lead. Sorry. Yeah.
If I can connect a couple of points on the lead.
Yeah.
The leaded paint had a problem. The only problem with leaded paint was if you bought an ugly color, you'd better get over it because it's going to outlive you. That paint was absolutely bulletproof. It never came off. It didn't chip. It didn't fade. And they couldn't sell enough paint because they didn't have to repaint things every 5 or 10 years like the latex or like with the cruddy enamels that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the thing with the leaded fuel was that unleaded fuel will varnish. It will break down and then become unusable. Therefore, you have to buy more fuel.
You have to buy more paint, do you?
Right. You have to buy more paint and you have to buy more fuel because you cannot stockpile fuel and keep it stable enough to store it for times when fuel is not available.
The lead is really interesting. Of course, we've been told it goes in the fuel to stop knock, which was that problem that used to arise with internal combustion engines. A thing called knock. I think it's when it misfires. Someone can explain it better than me. I've kind of bumbled my way through that one. But yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it. And that was from Ether. Thank you for that. Anti-knock, he put question mark. Yeah, absolutely. I remember being told about that when I was a kid. And Sussex Man writes, hi, Sussex Man. And Shelley's here too. Look, the gang's here. I know all the original gang, but the gang's getting bigger, so this is great. Sussex Man writes, he says, lead impeded frequencies, so they could not affect peoples in their houses, which had lead paint. How about that?
Bingo.
So we need to get back to lead paint, everyone. And Eric as well. When we had when I was on with you the other week with Mike, the bowler-hatted farmer, big farmer, because he's going to be the new king of the electric vegetables over here.
That's it.
He was talking about the lead in churches or those buildings adding to the healing frequency that would take place within the building. Do you remember him talking about that? Yeah.
Yes, I remember him talking about that. Yes, very interesting.
It is.
Because I reckon that I'm probably repeating myself here. They written that these old cathedrals built before 1066 were not cathedrals for worship. They were there to heal people. Because when you look at the design of them, the seating and the layout doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense at all.
No.
So you know that's
and the windows made of lead glass. You know, they put all sorts of different elements.
And don't forget the stained glass windows that emitted specific frequencies of light that, when came in contact with the body, would have beneficial and healing properties. The pipe organs that were the organ was constructed and the church was built around the organ, not the other way around. You know, they didn't build a building and then shoehorn an organ into it wherever it would fit. No, they designed the building around the pipe organ because the frequencies emitted from those pipes actually healed, resonated at the different frequencies of the human body.
Yeah.
And bells as well. The bells.
And bells.
Yeah. That's why there's so many cracked bells around, because that didn't happen by accident. They were deliberately cracked to prevent people using them, apparently, in many cases.
Yeah, well, I know we've mentioned it, but they say that radio is about repetition, and I think it is to a great degree. We're aware of all those bells from the so-called Russian Revolution. It wasn't Russian, of course, which were smashed up everywhere, and none of them had clackers. I don't know if clacker is the actual technical term for it,
clapper,
or is it the ding or the
clapper.
dong? Is it the dong? Is the clapper?
Clapper.
Is it clapper?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Because they say going like the clappers. That's where the saying comes from.
Yeah. Well, they still have bell ringing practice around here on a Tuesday evening, and it's fantastic. And I think I mentioned that I'm apart from removing wallpaper, we're taking a lot of wiring out in this house. What do I mean by that? it had sort of burglar alarms in here, which are just ridiculous. I can't stand all that. I'm not bothered. I don't care. It's just really you won't pay as much on your insurance. I don't know. I mean, I always thought insurance is basically you're taking a bet that your house is going to burn down, and the insurance company are taking a bet that it isn't. And that you've got a vested interest in not burning it down. Of course, this doesn't go for everybody. Anyway, not pointing fingers anywhere. Something lightning. But you get the idea. So I'm going to get a proper bell for a doorbell. We're taking the doorbell out. It never worked anyway. And I want maybe I'll get a huge one. What are the on big thing? Dong! So the whole of the district.
Letters from the council.
Yeah, someone's just.
It's been brought to our attention that your neighbors have been woken by your late night visitors.
It's not my fault. The postie insists on ringing it. Yes, but your bell weighs half a ton. I know, but I am. You can't prosecute me because I'm a member of the DC. I'm one of the delightfully cheeky British people, and we have to have large bells in front of our houses. So that's what we're going to do. And any British people. Sorry, go on, Eric. Sorry,
I didn't mean to cut him. But what about the one like the Addams Family? When you could have Lurch come, you know.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind all that. It makes life more fun, doesn't it? Electricity is getting a bad knock here, and I think it does. I mean, I'm quite into electricity. It's not so bad, but of course it's completely misapplied. One of the other things, did we mention this recently, this thing about electric bills? Not electric bells, electric bills, your bills for electricity. There's all a nonsense wrapped up with that. If you've got like a washing machine running, which is using AC current, the washing machine is actually feeding electricity back into the grid as you run it because it's going backwards and forthwards. I don't know if that's the technical phrase, because you're not just consuming it, you're sort of receiving it and sending it back. So we need all that sorting out as well. I see a sort of common thread here with all this kind of stuff. There's always a bill involved. And, whenever we've talked about banking, as I have done a couple of times during my life, it isn't about the presence of vast amounts of wealth. I'm really clear about it. It's about the removal of bills, particularly these utterly non-applicable bills. There is actually nothing to pay apart from the organisation that's collecting the bill. We're the bill collectors.
Oh, yes.
Don't you think? Yeah. And what have you actually given us?
The biggest rip-off is water. I had my water bill.
You mean water? Water.
And they charged me...
Yeah, water.
They charged me for taking rainwater away from my house.
Yeah.
I have a charge for the removal of rainwater from my house.
Right. And
I use less water now than I did last year. That's why I whiff a bit. And it's gone up a phenomenal amount. My last bill was £60-odd per quarter, and now it's gone up to over £80 per quarter. So it's gone up £20. So work that one out. And I've used a little bit less. And they're actually charging most of that £80 that I spend is a fee, standard charge for taking rainwater away from my house. What is the biggest? That must be the biggest rip-off ever. Oh, and soiled water. Well, the soiled water, they turn that into compost to make money out of it because they sell compost. Did you know that?
I'm getting quite cross about all this, Eric. I don't know about you, but I feel a bit testy about all this sort of thing. Yes, it's a bit irksome, isn't it? It really is.
So when you go to the bathroom in the morning, I won't go into explicit details, you're the director of the water company is thinking, I'm making money out of it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, don't go into specific details.
You are actually having a dump for and on behalf of the director of the water company because he's rubbing his hands together. He's going to make money from the compost. So that's nice, isn't it?
I'm going to think about that. Going forward,
I'd actually like the pipe to go straight into his office, so every time you flush, he gets a.
So what you're saying is MOFF is also going to have to apply to Minister of First Flush.
Yeah, it is. Minister of First Flush. We'll have to put you in technical charge of plumbing. I did tell you, actually, I'm sure I've bored everybody with this before. One of my first jobs was actually plotting the gradient of drainage pipes on new building sites to make sure that the soil pipes were not too steep and not too shallow. Otherwise, it's a problem both ways, you see. And very, very important. even though I used to just make it up. I don't think it really applied in real life. Once the builders got in there, they just, it'll go like this, and we'll put that there, and it works. They know what they're doing, but you have to go to the planning committee. Let's not talk about planning committees this week. It's a little bit too dry, but we're talking about very wet things and water and all that kind of stuff. But speaking of water, there's been quite a bit of it, hasn't there, in North Carolina and elsewhere, but certainly there's been quite a bit. And
Hurricane Helen,
and we do need to talk about this, I think, in all sorts of ways. Oh, I know. Actually, going back, you see, we talk about things. We're moving so quick. There are other little pointers. We were talking about. You remember right at the beginning of the show? It's a long time past, everyone. We were talking about battery vehicles. I know they're called electric vehicles, but battery ones. And one of the problems with them, there's a lot of problems with them, as has been exemplified by this recent deluge, because everybody will probably be aware that electricity and water are not really pals. They don't kind of get on too well, unless, of course, you're organising it in a particular way. When electric vehicles plunge into a river with occupants inside, more often than not, the doors cannot be opened at all. When you think about it, and you don't have to think they just will not open. And there are reports, unfortunately, of people, diving in after a car's gone in to try and get, and they can't because of this. Also, because I think they double tint the side windows. I don't know exactly what that means. So the front windscreen, of course, is doubly protected for obvious reasons. Don't want you flying through it, even though I know tragically sometimes people do at high speed, but. That's also on the side, which makes it impossible to break it. You can't break it. And if you can't actually undo the lock because all the electric circuits have shut off as well, that's not particularly good, is it? Also, I would have thought there might be a possibility of you just literally getting electrocuted to death as the water starts to conduct all the energy out of the battery through your body, which would be immersed in the medium cooled water. So overall, thinking it through, they're absolutely crap. They really are crap. And I've got.
You didn't touch on it at all.
Didn't I? Didn't I not mention?
Touch on all the problems. I'm sorry. I got to pull my soapbox.
No, good. You come on, electric guy. You give me there's loads more. Come on, there is. Yes, Paul, I'm all ears. Well, nearly.
When a lithium battery in a car gets wet, it generates its own oxygen and it spontaneously combusts. So here you are. You have a car. Mm-hmm. That first of all. Have you heard of exploding cell phones and pagers? Have you heard about that? What that is causing the lithium ion or the lithium battery in the cell phone or the pager to short out. It expands, and when it explodes, it ignites, and it'll blow a hole in your face. Okay? What if you have a 400 kilowatt battery underneath your butt in your car? Would it be possible to cause that battery to explode? If that battery gets wet or fails and that battery decides to ignite and it generates its own oxygen, even if it was at the bottom of a river, would it not have its own self-contained combustion chamber because it's surrounded by its own air that it created and literally cook you in a car that all the windows are safety glass and none of the doors will open and you die? What if you're going down a highway and somebody sends a signal to that car and causes the batteries to explode and you can't get out of the car because the doors don't open and the windows won't break? Well, you'll be able to get out when they melt, but I'm thinking if it got hot enough to melt the glass, I don't think you would be feeling good enough to climb out.
No. No, they're basically, like we said, they're basically mobile bombs. There is a massive problem with them. I mean, I know petrol tanks used to explode. What was that horrible American car that used to just explode?
The Pinto.
The Pinto, that was it. My God.
Something Ford Pinto.
It was just basically sort of like napalm ready to go off, wasn't it, that poor bloody thing? I mean, it was terrible. Yep. But, of course, they overcome the design with that. Formula One have dealt with that a long time ago with these wonderful rubberized fuel sacks that have got like cells in them everywhere. Which are way, way better. But I'm beginning to look at electric cars on the road with a leery eye. I'm thinking, I don't want it. What if one hits you and you're pinned in and it doesn't bear thinking about, does it? They're not good. But somebody's allowed them to go through. The regulatory body obviously knew what they were doing because they're very intelligent and clever. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy.
Aren't Ferraris prone to start on fire?
I think it's only when you put your foot on the accelerator. Is that what you mean? When they go like the clappers to link back to the bell, which they do. They used to be. I think so.
I heard that they were more prone than any of the other exotic cars to just starting on fire because of the heat involved in there in fueling the engines. But
yeah,
could be just a rumor.
It was Ferrari. What was it?
I don't know. Was it?
I don't know.
It was.
There's quite a few that have been prone to that sort of thing, but maybe Ferrari had a reputation. Anyway, hold those thoughts, gentlemen, because we're at the top of the hour. You're listening to Paul English Live here at paulenglishlive.com on WBN 324. We're going to take a short little break now. We will be back. This is a delightful little song, actually, from a band that I talked about ages ago, which won't be difficult for people to identify, but it's an acoustic piece, which I heard the other day, and it's somehow connected with Joni Mitchell as well. So we'll take a short break, and we'll be back after this 3 and a bit minutes.
Spend my days with a woman unkind, smoke my stuff and drink all my wine. Made up my mind, make a new start, going to California with an aching in my heart. Someone told me there's a girl out there with love in her eyes and flowers in her hair. Took my chances on a big jet plane. Never let them tell you that we're all the same. Oh, the sea was red and the sky was gray. I wondered how tomorrow could ever follow today. The mountain in the canyon started to tremble and shake. The children of the sun began to wake. Watch out. It seems that the wrath of the gods got a punch on the nose and it started to flow. I think I might be sinking. Throw me a line if I reach it in time. I'll meet you up there and the path runs straight and high. Find a queen without a king. They say she plays guitar and cries and sings. La la la. Ride a white mare in the footsteps of dawn, trying to find a woman who's never, never, never been born. Standing on the hill in the mountain of dreams, telling myself it's not as hard as it seems.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
And welcome back to part 2 of Paul English Live, or hour 2, I should say. And that was, that song was, well, if you don't know it, where have you been? Going to California. I don't think anybody goes there now anymore. They're all leaving California, according to some charts I've got, by a little band called Led Zeppelin from the 1970s. And a delightful, wonderfully evocative tune, which apparently was inspired by songs of Joni Mitchell. And I only became aware of this the other day, so there you go. You always learn something new every now and again, but I love that song. And very much in keeping, I think, with the kind of autumnal feeling. Makes me think of leaves and all sorts of other things like that. It's a very delicate sort of tune, so tremendous stuff. Anyway, welcome back, chaps, to part 2. I hope you've all powdered your noses and things like that. And where were we? We were talking about exploding cars, weren't we, and water and all this kind of stuff.
We were talking about supercars. In 2017, the Lamborghini Aventadors, they had a fire problem. There were 5,900 of them catching fire.
Say that again. How many?
There were 5,900 Aventadors catching fire. I didn't think they made that many. What Lamborghini blamed it on was the evaporative emission system, but some supercars, including Ferrari, yes, you're absolutely right, Ferrari. Some of them will catch fire because of the intense pressure of the fuel system and fuel delivery fatigue, where if you have major engine service or major automotive service, if they don't replace the fuel lines and fittings, they could fail. And, of course, spray gasoline all over hot engine and exhaust components. So there is another reason why the supercars catch fire. The huge fuel delivery and pressure conditions that those high-performance engines have to operate under.
I wonder what
it's a rolling bomb.
Yeah, I wonder what these guys could do if you gave them the electrolysis system for splitting water into hydrogen and running their cars on that. I think there'd probably be a little bit more power in the water than there is in the petrol. Just saying,
well,
you know.
The electric fuel or the hydrogen fuel cell. I like that idea where you take the hydrogen and instead of combusting it, you run it into the fuel cell and it creates electricity that then runs an electric motor. That idea is something that could be done instead of using large lithium batteries or any of these other battery systems.
I know. Now, isn't lithium, by the way, those evocative Italian car names, there's, of course, Ferrari. You have to say it sort of like that, I think, if you're sober. But I once, McLaren came out with a supercar a few years ago, and their spokesman said Lamborghini, and he just said it so well. I went, oh, I do like the way you say that, Lamborghini. And known for making tractors, of course. I wonder if they'll get involved in the massive big pharma electric vegetables situation. Jeremy Clarkson's got a Lamborghini tractor, and people didn't really know that. But it's a lovely word, Lamborghini. Yeah.
It's a type of
they
bull,
did make
I believe,
tractors.
Named after.
Didn't they start out making tractors?
They did, yeah. Yeah, they're tractor makers, yeah. Well, isn't that the same for David Brown? Which is the DB in Aston Martin. It was the Aston Martin DB6. That's the one that Bond had with the ejector seat. My, how I wanted that when I was 8. Dad, where's the ejector seat? Now. It's not been fitted yet. So, yeah. Lithium. Patrick, you just said lithium, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I did.
Isn't it the case that the big lithium deposits and quartz deposits in America are to be found in North Carolina, in this area that's just been devastated.
I heard as much. Yeah, I didn't realize that. And that particular spot is responsible for the majority of it in the country. And if it's just lithium, or if it's something else in particular there, but it's a very rare type of mineral that they mine from that area.
There's quartz and there's lithium, and there's something. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but isn't there a bit of
silicone wafers? It has something to do with creation of silicone wafers.
Well, I've got a little story here from mining.com, which is one of my favorite reads, as you can tell. I'm always going to mining.com. Hurricane Helen halts quartz mines needed for chip making, and they're not talking about fish and chips. They're talking about silicon chips, and it just says Hurricane Helen has halted North Carolina mining operations producing high-purity quartz used to make silicon wafers for semiconductor manufacturing. Operators Cybeco and Quartz Corporation both shut their facilities on September the 26th. The company said in separate statements it's too early to say when production could restart. The storm severely hit the community, which is struggling with flooding and power and communication outages. And the restart of, as Paul mentioned earlier, and the restart of operations is a secondary concern for now, the company said. I suspect the people, you see, I'm just... all these things going on at once that affect the infrastructure things.
And there's also dock workers are striking.
Longshoremen, is that what they're called? Longshoremen.
Yeah, International Longshoremen Union.
Yes,
they've gone on strike, which means all the main ports in America aren't shipping in or receiving.
Yes, all at the same time. It's just a coincidence, you know. We're just a coincidence theorists, aren't we? I heard. I don't know if somebody wants to look it up. The average salary of these longshoremen is pretty damn good.
Well, pretty good. I mean, they're responsible for quite a lot of commerce.
Very, very good. But they put in for a pay rise of 70%.
Yes,
more than likely.
Yes, they did, and
not 7%,
40%,
not 17%, 70%.
Well, I think everybody deserves a 70% increase in their wages. You know, it's only because we're so bogged down with cultural rot that nobody has any life to protest their wages. I mean, we're sitting on poor wages compared to what the cost of living is increased and the price of goods. Mm-hmm. You know, the things we have to pay for. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I usually go to our local co-op and I buy bags of hydrated lime by the 50-pound sack that, you know, you use for like whitewashing barns or whatever.
Right.
And it used to be $7 maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Now it's $18 per bag. It's just ridiculous.
Yep.
The level that it's jumped, but my wages haven't jumped that much. So
they offered the longshoremen 40% increase, and the union turned it down. And then they countered with the 70%, and the union is still thinking about it. And they say that one of the principal reasons why they're striking is because they're trying to stop automation and on the docks and shipyards from putting them out of work. And I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, they did it with the air traffic controllers and the airport controls. That became automated. That rolled out whether the airlines wanted it or not, or whether the air traffic controllers and maintenance people wanted it.
Well, it's like the steel industry, too. That's such a large scale thing that for the amount of workers they have, it's the steel mills and blast furnace, where they manufacture iron for making anything that goes into construction or shipping. There are fewer and fewer people that work at those jobs because it becomes automated. But then again, you then lack people learning the skills to maintain those things, and it just deteriorates to the point where they give up on them because they become such behemoths, and then they just import from other countries where they've got cheap labor, where they haven't automated, and they've got a workforce that's willing to work for lower wages, like China, India, Brazil.
Yeah.
The BRICS countries.
Yes.
BRICS countries still have the industry going on in where they can build things and make the raw mineral, take the raw minerals and make them into something, and then ship those out to the countries that are developed, like the Western countries.
Yeah, I mean, all of these events, this reduction in our independence, as it were, certainly for your neck of the woods and over here, is not a coincidence, nor is it natural. It's not due to so-called market pressures or anything like that. It just cannot be. I've mentioned here earlier this week in the UK, the last coal-powered power station, I should say. The last coal-fired power station was shut down. Let's go to The Guardian, that reputable organ. I haven't read the article. I haven't read it through. I've just got the headline here. End of an era, it says, as Britain's last coal-fired power plant shuts down. The UK's 142-year history of coal-fired electricity ends as turbines at Ratcliffe-on-Soar plant in Nottinghamshire stop for good. Not if I get back in power, they will. We'll rebuild them. We'll get it put up. The DCBP will get to it, and we'll have them back up in a cheeky fashion before you can say, Bob's your uncle. Britain's only remaining coal power plant at Ratcliffe-on-Soar in Nottinghamshire, it says, will generate electricity for the last time on Monday. That's just gone, after powering the UK for 57 years. The power plant will come to the end of its life in line with the government's world-leading policy. What does that mean? Leading into the world into a pit of ordure to phase out coal power, which was first signalled almost a decade ago. The closure marks the end of Britain's 142-year history of coal power use, which began when the world's first coal-fired power station, the Holborn Viaduct Power Station, began generating electricity in 1882. The shutdown has been hailed by green campaigners. By the word green, do they mean naive? By green, as a major achievement, for the government. Yeah, well, that's kind of a cack-handed compliment, isn't it? A major achievement by a government in reducing the UK's carbon emissions, which we don't. I want more carbon. Providing international climate leadership. It's just mad. And ensuring a just transition for staff in Britain's coal industry. Michael Shanks, the Minister for Energy, said, blah, blah, blah. No, he said, today's closure at Ratcliffe marks the end of an era, and coal workers can be rightly proud of their work, powering our country for over 140 years. We owe generations a debt of gratitude as a country. What a farcical statement that is. The UK became the first... It's a joke. It's just...
Coal workers, what are they now? There are going to be no more coal workers.
We owe them a debt of gratitude for 140 years of dedicated service to generating the power our country requires. Yeah. And as a thank you, we're going to put them all on unemployment.
Yeah, they can become poets.
I think, Paul, you can become an honorary member of the DCBP. I mean, I think it's... You can be our foreign correspondent over there in the colonies and all that kind of stuff, because we are the delightfully cheeky British people. Hello, everybody. I mean, this minister strengthened the UK's leadership. What are they talking about? I know what this on phasing out coal by calling for the deadline to come forward by a year. Shortly before the UK hosted the UN's COP26. Yeah, cop a load of this. That's a phrase mean get a bit of this. Climate talks in Glasgow in late 2021. It's just complete gibberish. As I said, I remember a company, I'm sure there's more than one, there's a group of people that I knew in California. How about that? So the song turned out to be appropriate after all. Who had come up with a liquid, very inexpensive, that could be sprayed over the coal or the coke before it went into the furnace, and the emissions were reduced down to about 1 to 2% of what currently goes out there. and it's all pointless anyway. They failed to mention this in The Guardian because China have built 270 coal-fired power stations in the last 5 years. So you're complete arseholes, as we already knew, but it's good that you put it in writing for those of us that can actually read properly. Yeah, Eric, sorry.
Well, yes, well, sorry, no, it's okay. I chimed in. What it is, after the miners' strike in the 80s, there were scientists, a group of scientists, that did research, and they discovered that we have over 400 years of coal stocks on this island. Also, so we could be self-sufficient in energy. And number two is they had, no dirty jokes, please, they had scrubbers on these, mechanical scrubbers on these coal-fired power stations that actually cleaned the air, and they were the most advanced in the world. And all that technology has just been shoved aside. Not only that, we had the most advanced coal mining and the safest in the world. So those people, from the early 80s, are no longer around, or they're very old. That technology has been lost forever, and we've got 400 years of the coal stocks. We had power stations that were not polluting, or if there was any, it was getting better and better and better, getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and they was using less coal for exactly the same amount of power output. They found, and the technology was advanced. Again, we scrapped all that. To me, there's only one word that sums that up: treason. Those in government are guilty of treason. That is no other. We could have power now that's, well, quite honestly,
coming out of our backsides. That's what you're saying.
Well, not only that, did you know that we never had meters when the national grid was formed before World War II? People got electricity free in their houses. It's totally free.
Well, I'm going to play a song. I'm going to play a song because it's really appropriate. This is basically a DCBP production. It isn't, actually. I might have played this before, but it's really relevant to the coal thing because this is a song by Public Service Broadcasting. They're worth looking up. They do a very quick... I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're a band. They're actually playing locally nearby. It's called People Will Always Need Coal. And it's got some of those facts in. And what they do, they take some of these old BBC broadcasts. Oh, so you want to be a miner, that kind of stuff. And they put it to music. It's really rather nice. And it builds up quite nicely. Anyway, so we're going to take another little 4-minute break, quicker than I thought, but we're going to do it right now because we're on the subject of coal, black gold.
In South Wales, it seems over 2.5 feet thick. There is still at least 10,000 million tons of the coal that made her famous. Enough for another 400 years.
400 years.
The young men of Wales are finding in the industry that employed their fathers and their grandfathers, there's a future, a secure future in Welsh coal today. A secure future in Welsh coal today.
It's an industry of men. We need more men.
There's more to mining than dust and dirt. Much more. You'll discover the excitement of going underground. There'll always be something new. A secure future in Welsh coal today.
be turning out best Welsh for a few hundred years yet.
Its character is changing. As it turns confidently, what may lie ahead?
People will always need coal, and there's lots of it in the ground ready to be dug out and power stations to be rebuilt. Chaps, does that make you all want to become miners and get dirty again? It does me.
Absolutely. And what the governments have done in the interests of globalism and the baloney green agenda, they have eliminated your country's fuel independence, forcing you to play ball on a global marketplace just to be able to keep from freezing to death or living in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what my local village did here was there needed to be power in the area, and for one reason or another, whatever, they decided not to run it in from the closest power facility. And what they did was they had a little canal running through the village, and they built their own hydroelectric system. And my energy is 1/3 the cost of pretty much anywhere in the country because it's a local municipal power authority. And I think you guys could do exactly the same thing. Set up local municipal power authorities, leave the grid altogether, tell the big boys that you're not playing, and just go on with life. And build the existence you want. Build your reality.
Got to. So when you say that, you reminded me of that film with Jeff Bridges, Tron, where he talks about the grid. I got in. But we're saying the grid. We got out. We built our own grid. I'm completely for that. There's, they're saying, well, this is all nostalgia. I'm not, coal was dirty stuff. There's no two ways about it. I was brought up in Yorkshire where everybody talked like that. And my dad knew loads of miners because he sold loads of things to shops that were run by miners or miners' wives as they were, making ends meet and all that kind of stuff. And they were dirty fellows covered in coal dust, all that. And back then, it was bloody tough. It had always been tough. And of course, the coal owners, when they first opened the pits, they didn't give a SH1T about the health, safety and welfare of their people. In fact, there are these horrific stories of women down there and their children pushing these coal trolleys, along these railway lines that they'd laid down there. They were naked practically. It was so hot down there doing that. That's a dignified job for you, isn't it? So, the history of it is one of abuse as they were building it, and now it's one of abuse as they take it. After we've solved all the problems, as Eric was talking about, and could have carried on doing that, then, of course, it's got to be attacked. Anything where we don't have to pay attention to them has to be destroyed. And I've mentioned here before, that wonderful song, I play it quite a bit, but it was totally apt given that supposedly we've now lost the last of the coal-fired power stations. But as I said, I think the DCBP can bring them back. Might take a little while, of course, because all the young people don't want to get dirty. But it is exciting underground, and it was getting less and less dirtier because of all the technology being applied to it. So the guy in that song, that quote from the series mentioned, what was it, 10 million cubic tons of coal for 400 years. That's just in Wales. In Yorkshire, there's a Selby coalfield which stretches out into the North Sea, which is about another 280 years worth. So the key thing, and Paul, you touched upon it, the key thing is energy independence. This is not wanted, because how are you going to listen to a global government if you don't have to? How are you going to listen to the orders of your local council with regards to water if you don't have to? We have to apply technology in our own groups, and we do. And really, the DPCP needs to be an organised thing. It absolutely does. And so, we're touching on loads of things here in the last few weeks, and I love this sort of stuff because I think when we're talking about constructive things that we can do, it's much more, it raises one's morale, and we're not just mired in batting off all the garbage that is emitted from the orifices of these would-be dictators of the world. They're manipulators. We know this. I'm going to run out of adjectives to describe it all. But we've touched on fresh farm eggs, raw milk, giant electric vegetables. This is going to be very exciting. And getting our own power system sorted out. We've also got that thing, the Kinetic 7 that we talked about recently, where they split the water into hydrogen. You've got your own cooker and heater. So that means for all these old people that are apparently, there's going to be an increase of 170,000 deaths they expect over this winter because the loss of this fuel support that they used to get. Yeah, they used to get supported with money to actually meet the costs of that. Then all they need is a Kinetic 7 in their house, and if they're not cooking on it, they just leave it burning, and it'll heat the entire house up. So that's that. So technology is not really the problem, although the mainstream press always make out that it is. They have to make out that it is, because you have to be kept reliant on the existing infrastructure because there's so much money being borrowed on it. And in the end, like we said, all roads lead to Rome, all roads lead to the bank. And because of this bogus idea of what life has become, which is we have to make money. And I heard somebody else droning on about this again today, well, it's absolutely vital that we have economic growth. And we're going to be burdened with a budget, Eric, aren't we, by two-tier Kia very soon. I don't know what date it is, but apparently it's going to be dreadful because he's been telling us.
30th of October.
When?
30th of October. So 30th of October. So fill up your petrol tank, your diesel before then, because I'm almost guarantee that's going to go through the roof with fuel costs. Oh, yes. We want to get cars off the road. But the fact is that you think about it, everything we built up, this country has been destroyed, totally and utterly, systematically destroyed. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable.
Well, because we lost World War II, right?
Correct.
Because all the threads go back in again and again and again. They all go to one place. They all go to certain crews of people that are just obsessed with running something and giving themselves a job that nature didn't even create. We don't need you. We don't need you. The only way to do it, like we've said here before, I think, or certainly a key aspect of it, it's not the only way, but a key aspect is this local organising, helping people out, all that kind of stuff. Here we are doing this radio thing, and I've been thinking of doing a radio station literally for my town. I want to do one name for the town. I thought what I'd do is I'd get like 50,000 business cards printed. Actually, I don't need that many. There's about 20,000 houses, I'm told, in this little seaside town. There's quite a few, right? And to get the business cards out and to create a local communicating point for everybody about, so that it's not to charge advertising to farmers, it's to provide an information, a DCBP approach. I can't get over that. As you can tell, I'm going to wear the phrase out. But I do think I like to be delightfully cheeky. I think most English people do, and I think it would really work. We need a network of little local stations or whatever, communication points, to provide this sort of reinforcement for everybody, so they go, we can deal with our own problems, and we're going to, no matter what sheets of paper you send to us through the post, We're not interacting with you. We don't have a contract with you. We're going to get to all that point. Oh, you do? No, we don't. We don't even know you, and you're very rude, and we're not paying you any money. And why would we need? You wouldn't need too much money, would you? Of course, I know they get you on land taxes and all this other stuff. We'll deal with that as well in due course. But if you can grow massive electric vegetables in your greenhouse, all your heating's covered and your power supplies, all these things exist. We just got to start working a bit harder. We do. We've got to work really hard. But I think if you're doing it in teams, it's not work. It's an absolute blast. It really is. It's exhilarating. You won't be able to get out of bed soon enough. It will get like that. Instead of everybody going, no, they're doing this and they're doing that. We go, no, we're doing this. We're doing that. It's much better.
A local health system that's based upon the pre-war German one, which has natural medicine and emphasis on fitness and quality food. Not, excuse my language, well, I won't say it, but the rubbish that they pump out, for example, and the hospitals or the NHS can keep their vending machines selling fizzy drinks with aspartame in it and cheesy snacks and rubbish like that. And I think that we need to vote with our feet. We just go somewhere else. No, we don't want you. Go away. I mean, when you walk into a supermarket, when you look around, there's very little that is actually edible. Seriously, when you look, because the fruit. Now, when you look at fruit, for example, the fruit we have today is very different to what they had about 400 years ago. Apples, years ago, people did them raw. They had to be cooked because they were so sour. They were small and sour, so people ate less of them. Oranges, they've been bred to be sweet, but the problem is that they've bred the vitamin C out of them. You probably get more vitamin C sniffing the actual outside of the orange. So people are having fruit juices and things like that. And no wonder diabetes is through the roof because they're giving themselves massive glucose spikes and things like that. We're not designed, the human body's not designed to keep snacking and having stuff like that. Yep. So that's one area we need to look at. Because when you look, I mean, I was looking today, the amount of fat blobs walking around, overweight, obese people, is phenomenal. Once upon a time, it's just isolated one or two. Now, there's
an almost, when you go out for a walk, there's an almost partial eclipse of the sun when you get behind one of these people, isn't there? I mean, right, I thought from a marketing point of view, though, that their arses are so big and wide and vast that there's a lot of poster advertising state resource going to waste, and maybe we could hire their bottoms out so that they could walk around with, adverts on their backsides because they're so big. They're so enormous, these things. Sir, madam,
that's right.
I've just been walking along, I've noticed you've got the most enormous arse. And we just wondered if you would wear this clothing for a week. We'll pay you £5 a day or something to walk around like this, because it's almost impossible to not notice the vast scale of your behind. I don't know. Do you think people probably won't want it?
I think politicians.
Gain another...
Sorry, carry
Go ahead, Eric.
Patrick. Paul. Sorry.
Well, and you could offer to, if they can gain another 50 or 100 pounds, there might be another pound in it for them per week.
Yes.
A little bit of room for a bigger billboard.
I was going to say the problem
I actually think that politicians should actually have who sponsors them sewn into their clothing. So you'll see a politician stand up and you'll have, the tobacco companies and all these different pharmaceutical companies who are paying
that's
them.
Brilliant.
And that will make things even more clearer, wouldn't it? I mean,
you mean a bit like a Formula One car? Like a Formula One car, just covered in the advertising of this one. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. I think that's good.
Well, the problem is
sports.
I heard that it used to be, so the people that wear these name brand clothes and shoes and that sort of thing, it used to be that people didn't want names of any product on their clothes, and that they had to actually pay, like Nike had to actually pay people to wear clothes with their advertising on it. And now it's become to the point where people pay to have them advertise on their clothing.
That's ridiculous.
I will not.
I have a solution for you that we haven't touched on yet, Paul.
I'm all ears.
Well, okay. Well, you run into things that you would like to get rid of, and instead of putting them out in the trash, you'd rather just burn them. Get yourself some red bricks, a little bit of mortar. You and the boys go out back, and you build a little fireplace outside the house, and you put a stack on it, 12 to 15 feet tall, so you can build fires in that fireplace. You can build a fire and like sit around and watch the flicker of the flame. Or if you have some wallpaper to get rid of, or some papers, newsprint, whatever to get rid of, you just put it in there and you burn it, and the smoke is way above your neighbors. And
it's called the chimney, Paul.
Yeah,
houses used to have them.
Yeah, houses used to have them. You could definitely do it outside. You could do it outside.
But what about a rocket stove?
Well, I have something I built. It's a blast furnace where it's just forced air into it, and it's.
Say that again, Patrick, because there are not many people here that actually do build blast furnaces. I think you're the first person I've ever spoken to that's gone out of his way to build. So you've built a blast furnace. What's
for smelting ore? For melting rocks. Think of it that way. It's hot enough. You blow air into it. Like I've got it set up so that leaf blower is the motor. Driving the air into the thing through a little nozzle, and then you put your fuel in there, your coal, and then you put your ore, which is nothing more than a rock that hasn't been smelted, and you layer it, and then you blow the hot air on the fire, and then it pools up with the liquid metal and slag at the bottom, and then you tap a hole with clay at the bottom, and it all pours out into your mold. It's called a blast furnace, and that's how they make steel, except they do it on such a large scale these days that it's such a ridiculous thing to even think about making your own small blast furnace, but I've done it.
I love it. This week, I have mostly been building a blast furnace. That's great. Are you suggesting that we should all do this sort of thing?
I think
Patrick?
we should. It's kind of like power generation. We have these huge power generators that supply cities with power, but then you go to the rural areas, and it's like they have to run lines all the way over there from the big power station. We still have we have coal and we have nuclear, but if you had small, a village power station where you had a dump truck unload a load of coal every so often so that you could feed it, I think that would be the way to go, and it'd be real energy independence from foreign interests, and you could definitely probably save a lot of money, and pensioners a lot of money for that matter, from having to heat their buildings like that.
In other words, we could actually save a lot of pensioners.
Yeah. But they don't do that. Like here in the States, it's federally regulated, so that power companies have to they're given a certain geographic area, and you can't have those small stations. You have to have these larger stations. It's just bureaucracy set up in such a way.
And you can't be completely off grid either. You have to have electrical
you have to pay it back.
You property, or they'll condemn it.
Feed it back into the grid somehow.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to feed it back into the grid, but you do have to have a connection to an electrical utility. Otherwise, they will condemn your property and force you to leave. You have to have, if power is available in your area, you have to be hooked up to it and pay the very basic minimum access
standing charge or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Right. I was thinking about this too with this blast furnace, that it can double as an incinerator, so you wouldn't have to pay to have the waste management truck, the cartel come and pick up your trash in the bin, and you just burn it.
Well, didn't they used to do
fuel
that?
Your smelting.
They had waste burners in the basement. I had a waste burner in the basement of the house that I grew up in. We didn't throw the garbage out or take it to the dump. Sometimes we did because we had stuff that wouldn't burn. But there was a burner in the basement, and it was simply a trash burner. You take your bag, you put it in there, you turn the thing on. It has a pilot flame. When you turn it on, the pilot flame would ignite whatever was in there. And then when it got hot enough in the cavity to completely obliterate what was in there, the gas flame would shut off and it would just continue burning the fuel that was in there. We used to have those things, but we don't have them anymore. Why?
Because it's too easy to just consolidate it.
I think the operative word there may be the word "we," Paul, because I think this is what's occurring: is we and those of a similar frequency as this conversation, etc., are more clearly defining who we are addressing when we use the word "we." In the past, we used to mean everybody in the country. That's what it used to mean. And in fact, I guess as a shorthand, people still think of that, So when Queer Starmer, as Maleficus cheekily called him in one of his posts in Rumble Chat a few moments ago, it's dreadful. I don't know how he dare say such a thing. When he rolls out with his budget on October the 30th, he will be using the word "we," and he'll be addressing the nation. He'll be saying, the idea is to create this inclusiveness, that we're all involved in this together. But what's clearer and clearer to more and more people is that we're not, and that we never were. We never were. We're just included in there. Because when they're using the word "we," he's addressing him and his cohorts. We here have got nothing to do with it. And I think if we look at what we're talking about in terms of getting our independent power, something which, of course, they're doing everything they can to ensure we don't get, it could well turn out that building your own furnace is exactly your own blast furnace. Almost, even if you don't know what to do with it, maybe it becomes a symbolic gesture. They're all building blast furnaces in their garden, are they? Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what the Chinese
and they're rounding up chickens.
Industrialized.
What are they doing? They've got lots of chickens. They're filing them on the database. They're all building blast furnaces. Really? Yes.
Well, that's how the Chinese got to the point where they are now. Mao had them all build blast furnaces.
Yeah.
They then had the material for building their industry.
Yep.
And they learned how to do it.
I'm not a spring chicken. I'm not a chicken at all, but I suppose I could get round to building a blast furnace. It's never occurred to me. I didn't think this show would turn into a kind of blast furnace type show, but it has. It's not bad, really. It's quite interesting. You never know where it's going to go.
Has anybody in chat or anybody on here heard of a rocket stove? That's what.
Yeah, that's essentially what I built, and that's essentially a blast furnace. You're running air into it and providing fuel into it. You're just basically feeding it from the side as opposed to feeding it from the top.
There's a small amount of fuel that's either fed from the front or the bottom, and a tall chimney, 3 or 4 feet long, creates a radical updraft and just super, super fast air going past the flame or the burning material. And it burns so hot and so fast that it generates a lot of heat with a very small amount of fuel and in a very short period of time.
Eric, have you heard of a Kelly kettle? You know what I'm talking about? Yes. They used to have them in the... You know, Paul?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, they used to give them to soldiers. It was a water-jacketed... you'd make your tea with it. It was a water-jacketed kettle, but in the center of it was open to, and then you build a fire at the base. You'd set it on top of a base where you'd build a fire with kindling, and then the flames would go through the center of the kettle and heat the water for your tea, and you just provide it through a couple hole slots in the bottom with your fuel of twigs or whatever type of kindling you could get in there, and it would just heat the water, and then you could have tea time.
I like it that you're talking about tea. When you said tea, I drifted off. I thought I could really do with a cuppa right now. Actually, need to put the kettle on. Got to put the kettle on anyway. Really, a gesture, often in many old British films, which I think is symbolic of coping with a crisis. We've got a bit of a problem here. Well, put the kettle on. I'm sure we'll sort it out. Just calm down a bit. Let's have a biscuit and a cup of tea. Let's think this thing through.
You'd see the British military people using these things. They're called Kelly kettles.
Yeah, a military runs on tea.
Yes, you can get them off eBay. They're about £60
for a rocket stove.
Stainless or aluminum?
Okay.
No, Kelly kettles.
All right. Okay.
Them. And yeah, if you look on eBay, £51, £70. Yeah, you can still get them. Was one here. Oh no, sorry, that's the bag for them. They're quite expensive though. They're about 70. That'd be about what? $70, $80. I don't know.
But if it's a good kettle and it lasts, it's not expensive, is it? There's some enthusiasm here. Ether says he's got 2. I've got 2. Very good, excellent. 2 Kelly kettles, small and large, great gear, recommend. Okay, there we go. We're going to have to, we're turning into this, we've just brought in a sort of survivalist theme to the conversation, haven't we? But I think it's good because it's also bad as just...
like, I hear about North Carolina right now. They don't have running water. They have to go to the nearest well or river or whatever they have to get fresh water to flush the toilets even. Such things as radio communication. You were talking earlier about radio communication, Paul, and just having your local setup. I've been involved in micro FM radio stations for a while, since a friend of mine who knew William Cooper had set me up with a micro FM radio station.
Right.
It just tunes into the same frequencies that you drive around in your car and listen to and tune in. And the FM is the best way to do that because it stays local. It's not like AM where it'll skip and go off at a large distance.
Yeah, we've got obviously some rather chunky regulatory authorities over here. They've done a lot to restrict radio. I was actually watching something.
But even if it's just in say you live in an apartment complex, you can have smaller ones that just reach everybody in the apartment, for instance.
Yeah.
Or just in a small neighborhood. You don't have to have a huge... border blaster, like million-watt station, and like they had in Mexico back in the day.
That's what I want. One of those.
Someday. But
we need to get a Blackpool Tower and turn that into one up there for the Northwest. They need a big transmitter. I watched some kind of YouTube thing a couple of weeks ago about the growth of FM land-based stations in London. It was all to do with reggae music and that sort of thing, which, of course, I'm not particularly partial to, but I do remember it at the time. And sort of all these dance stations and other things, very silly dancing. I haven't got time for that. But they sprang up everywhere, and they were putting transmitters on the top of tower blocks. So the history of radio over here and the benign influence of the BBC was such that the pirate radio stations over here in the 60s really thrived. They were introducing to teenagers their own space where they could hear all the latest pop records and hits. And so the most famous was Radio Caroline. There was also a great one called Radio London, which I was too young to know of at the time, but their jingles are fantastic. I've talked about this before. Wonderful Radio London. It's all cheesy. I love all that stuff. And anyway, in the 80s and 90s, they built up these huge listener bases. And the BBC, along with the regulatory authorities, basically maneuvered it such that they ended up setting up a station that mimicked that. They brought all this talent in, and then, of course, it all gets absorbed by the established regime, as it were. This thing happens over here again and again and again.
The censorship regime.
Yeah. And you'll constrain it a bit. The main thing that it saps is its natural reckless spontaneity, which is key. It is when you're young, you don't really know certain things, but you're just very enthusiastic. And it's that energy that carries a lot of projects through to fulfillment. And they were talking to some guys that basically, they'd invested a lot of money because they thought it was, and then they didn't get the license, And it's who gets to give out the licenses. So, I mean, as a technology, I accept that there's a limited number of bands, as it were, and you don't want signals crossing all over the place. But there's probably an awful lot more. Anyway, we've got Tinternet right now, or maybe Tinternet's got us. Depending on how they're going to control all that kind of stuff. But we thunder on. But, yeah, I know. It's just the idea of doing something local with radio is very appealing, particularly to discuss these sorts of things. Like, if you're thinking of building your own blast furnace, we're having a blast furnace meeting on the next Friday over at this hall. Get yourself down there. And it's just connecting people up. It's wonderful.
the local blacksmith, the ironsmith in town here. He's like, wow, that's cool. Invite me over when you're going to fire it up. So you. Yeah.
Well, film it. You get some film of it, Patrick. I'd like to see it when you do, and maybe I could even run it here on the video part of Room. It's not very good, of course, for radio listeners. So
you'd be surprised how few videos are out there, say on YouTube. Of course, they censor things, but how few videos I've actually been able to find of people building things where they could actually smelt ore into metal on a scale like that. Because it's hard to find. You find these places in India, the whole primitive craft type thing, where it's showing these, impoverished areas of India where they're doing it barefoot and all that kind of stuff. But there aren't that many people doing it. It's just because, just like the whole industry, nobody's working. They're all in service jobs or in there, doing things that are niche. That
I can see a magazine now, Blast Furnace Monthly. The hobby for all the family. Yeah, that's what we want. Things like that.
Well, the local radio, I like that idea because you could advertise local businesses, or local farmers for that matter. Like Farmer Joe, he's got chickens and he's getting tons of eggs. They're all registered chickens, whatever. But it's for people who couldn't afford to advertise. I think there is a local station here. I've forgotten what it's called, but they bomb around. There's lots of local radio stations. I saw that George Soros bought up thousands, didn't he, the other day over in your neck of the woods? So
that he can bombard people's brains that they must vote for the camel or whatever, because he's a very silly, wicked and tiresome oaf with lots of money, unfortunately, which is very irritating. People still respond to all that. But the internet route for us locally would work because, let's face it, the mobile phone is basically, in many ways, the equivalent of the old pocket hybrid transistor radio.
It could be a hybrid where you do have the local station, but you also have the internet where you reach out to those people in the area, and you just, like they used to do for concerts, you'd put up your flyer. Like, you want to listen to this? Listen on this station. Here you go.
Yeah.
While you tune in.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of sort of branding and getting an idea that catches, isn't it, to some degree, to a great degree. I don't know. I mean, Eric, maybe it could be the Fockham Hole radio network for the whole of the UK. Everybody would respond to that.
Excellent idea.
Yeah, so it'd be Fockham Hole Brighton, Fockham Hole London, Fockham Hole Leeds, the Fockham Hole Bradford, and just build them up. Just find people that want to do it. I mean, because I would like to do it. I really would like. A lot of people want to talk. I mean, some people probably shouldn't talk, if you know what I mean, because it can get a little bit exhausting, a bit like us, I suppose.
Well,
but I'd do it for free eggs. I could go to the farm and say, look, we'll run an advert for your stuff as long as you give me, 2 dozen eggs every week. Seriously, I'd do it for that. That's eggs dealt with. That's milk dealt with. Now I've just got to deal with a couple of other things.
And it would boost business for them.
Yeah.
They would get a wider audience of people that, hey, this guy's got eggs. Or this guy's got a cafe, but it's off the main street, so let's go to him. But you don't see it because you don't drive by it every day.
It'd be fun. Yeah, and we could do broadcast from bars. It's very easy with this technology. We could actually just get in there and do it. We're down at Barney's bar or whatever it is, or Ted's bar or whatever. And I'm getting carried away now, not talking about anything serious, really.
That's serious. I mean, you have your phone set up so that you can broadcast to your internet station. See, the tech thing, we were talking about this before, Paul.
I know.
It's all a matter of scheduling it and all that kind of thing.
It is, really. It is. There's lots of... I think what's occurred... a bit like this event, Eric, that you're talking about at the farm at Suffolk on October the 13th. Word's getting out. The idea of electric Italian farmers is very interesting, isn't it? I love it. We're going to, you will see a demonstration where we take a small tomato and inside 1 hour it will be 4 feet in diameter. No, I'm not expecting anything like that, but it's going to be fascinating to see what it's like. I do want to make it. And if we are up there and we've got a signal, we could do a spontaneous live broadcast from there as we're hoofing around and do stuff. That'd be fun. So, yeah, absolutely.
I remember, one of the girls that was in school with me, her uncle had this TV show that he did. It was like a public access thing, but it went viral. This was way back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was called Mystery Science Theater 2000. And it was just him, and then it was him in silhouette in a movie theater with a couple robots, cyborgs, puppets. And they played old B-movie horror movies and, just the thriller, the B-movie Roger Corman type things. And it's just, the whole thing is a show of him doing commentary. Right. Anyway, I hear the music, but it went off like crazy, and it was just a simple thing.
Cool.
That entertain people.
Well, hold those thoughts, because we will carry on. We're coming up to the end of our slot here at WBN 324. We've had a cracking, fast-moving, coal, electric, blast furnace sort of conversation for the last couple of hours. It's been a lot of fun. If you want to carry on tuning in and listening to us, we're still on Rumble for a wee while longer, and on Radio Soapbox, probably another hour, maybe half an hour. I don't know. We just bumble along after the official deadline. But we'll be back again here next week, same time, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. in the UK on WBN 324. Have a cracking week until then, and we'll see everybody else after the break, and another tune coming up from Maleficus. And we're still here. We're still live on Rumble and Radio Soapbox and elsewhere. By the way, if you probably not, we know from the stats that not many people do tune into Radio Soapbox at the moment. It's been, what's the word? Wrecked by a lot of technical gumbo, which me and Patrick are trying to sort out at the moment, which we will, and we'll let you know. We've got a much better signal really running today for the show, and we're going to be doing more. So I'll announce that here. It's a very good practice anyway for us to sort a few other things out. And if any of you out there do want to set up a radio station for your local area, and you should, because it's a lot of fun and you'll make a lot of good connections, and then you can start to sell raw milk and eggs and assist people with building blast furnaces and all sorts of other interesting things. And they can hear Eric. Yeah, and then we'll syndicate this show to all of them, and then we can beef it up. So get in touch. Let us know.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we want more people setting up radio stations.
We do. We want
competition. The competition is good. We're not a monopoly type mentality here.
Yeah, it's good. If we had I don't know how many towns there are above a certain size, but there's plenty over here, and there's lots of local areas and lots of little businesses struggling, and to just bring them in and to let people know and to push this whole idea, it's more than an idea, the actuality of quality food, quality energy, looking at how we produce our own, and just disconnecting from the garbage system and becoming that voice. And basically it will be the DCBP network, really. I think it would just have to be that, and it would all fall under that with all these different brands, and that's it. Tune in to your local delightfully cheeky British People's Radio Network or something like that, and all on a local basis. And you don't know, some cracking talents probably out there behind the mic, and in terms of putting shows together and other people that need to be heard, and it's a pretty lightweight system technically to set up. Although we should, of course, expect trouble at mill. There probably will be trouble from certain people who don't like us talking and doing that. I think we all know who they are. But there we go. One other thing as well about the budget coming up. I was just looking at the calendar, as one does. And Eric, you mentioned that it's going to be on Wednesday, the 30th of October, which means this show, which will be running on Thursday, the 31st of October, we'll be able to talk about it. So we won't go massively budgeted because it won't affect you guys in the States. Also, very interestingly, a few days after that, you lot are having something called an election or something, or you're voting for
presidential election, federal election.
Yeah, I bet you can't wait. It's very exciting, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
lovely.
Isn't it lovely? It's tremendous, yeah. So anyway, both of the candidates have got lots of personal integrity and are totally trustworthy and are not manipulated by a coterie of people in the shadows at all. That's right out. We deny that completely. No, they're their own people. They can make their own independent decisions and lead America back to something or other. Great. The idea of having Keir Starmer over here and the camel in charge, tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. What a tremendously exciting thought that is.
Is he also the type that wants to cut off little children's balls? They call them steer starmer.
Well, I don't know about that. There's some. I mean, there are some dreadful. Let's put it. I don't want to go into this, but there's some dreadful, incriminating allegations. Allegedly, there are a lot of skeletons in the cupboard for that chap, whatever he is. There's something not right. I heard. I won't pass it. I heard something the other night from somebody who knew from first hand of certain sordid things that you can probably imagine and know, because we kind of touch upon these things. But I don't want to plow into it. We don't need to. I'm personally much more interested in blast furnaces. I'm also. Sure. I am highly concerned about the plight of completely innocent children that are getting plowed under by these maniacs and sickos.
Yeah.
But I haven't got any power right now, this very moment, to affect that. We can talk about it. We should talk about it at some point, and we will talk about it. But I'm personally encouraged by the idea that we come together as people in all these little clusters, and we keep reinforcing a positivity about building something, about restoring what we want, and spending less and less time being anxious about the stuff that they're coming up with, because we're going to take the stance that, sorry, we're not in a contract with you, it doesn't apply to us, and you're not even bloody English anyway, so bugger off, and things like that. So it's a way of sort of fueling our fires to start standing again and acting like we know we want to act, and spend less and less time giving them our ears. I don't want to lend them my ears too much anymore, so it's all part of it.
But now we got sort of rules, like, for example, you can't market, say, cheddar cheese. It has to be cheddar type cheese, because the cheese can only be cheddar cheese if it comes from cheddar. Mm-hmm. So maybe we should call the Prime Minister the Prime Mincer. Wouldn't that be more accurate?
Yes, it would.
It's just a thought, Yes, we've got the Prime Minister now coming out,
Well, I suppose if we wanted to get all authoritarian about this vast radio network of independent broadcasters that's going to spring up rapidly because we've just had this conversation, we could come up with a style sheet, and we could say, whenever you refer to the person, he's always got to be called the Prime Minister. This is part of the radio network style sheet. And stuff like that, yeah.
Government called Matthew with the best PR our money can buy, because that's really what government is. It's the mafia, as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I think the mafia are more honest, because that they are sort of taking money from you forcibly for their own ends, whereas government try to make it look as if they're doing it because they care about you, which is the biggest load of bovine excrement you get to come up against. That's it.
Yeah,
the main
reminds.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, you speak.
It just reminds me of the time when my dad said, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I mean, it's
as he bit his tongue and whipped you with a belt.
Yeah, exactly. But I think everybody that's ever been anywhere near a polling place or an election site, they completely missed the boat if they didn't walk in there singing, "We've got a ruddy bunch of monkey butts that all want us to vote for them today."
Yeah. The thing is about that, that deceit that you were just addressing there, Eric, is they believe it. That's the problem.
They're mental. I think that Godfrey Bloom, I was looking at him today, is accurate. They are mentally deranged. There is something mentally wrong with them. And wasn't it a journalist that went into the House of Commons? Something War, not Adrian War, one of them. And he was convinced that they're all mentally ill. They've all got a mental illness. There's something wrong with them.
Well, I think it's the case. We mentioned here, haven't we, that obviously we have these offhand criticisms. He's a lunatic and this, that, and the other. But in this case, it's precisely true that they are mentally ill. They're mentally
ill. They get upset. They get upset that we're not as mentally ill as they are.
Absolutely.
Look at the whole COVID thing.
I heard a thing from, who's that oaf over at your neck of the woods? Is it John? Oh, he's the one that, what's his name? From Boston. I've forgotten his surname. He's quite old now. Banging on about the environment.
John Kerry.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
The Heinz lady. He's married to the Heinz.
Oh, good grief. What a complete...
I went and I bought some HP sauce, by the way.
Oh.
And guess who makes it? Heinz. Heinz makes HP sauce, and they make it in the Netherlands. They don't make it in England. But
they probably don't make it here either. As long as it's brown and got that zingy tarty. Have you tried it with sausages yet? And tomatoes?
Yes. Oh, not tomatoes. I'm going to try that now.
Okay, yeah. So the best. I'm just starting salivating as I started talking about it. This is terrible. I can't talk now.
Sausages.
I've got a list of sandwiches. Of course, there's some tremendous ones. I like chicken and pesto sandwiches. They're absolutely fantastic, and there's lots of others. But a toasted panini with some butter. I have these Italian chicken sausages, which are absolutely fabulous. Sliced tomatoes and the brown sauce, and the brown sauce does something with the tomato, and it goes into a different realm of sandwich. It's just fabulous. Sorry, I'm getting quite giddy thinking about it. Anyway, okay. John Kerry. Anyway, I wonder if John Kerry's got any HP sauce. Probably not.
He's got tons of it.
Oh, yeah, I guess. I suppose his table's full of it. He probably goes, I don't even like this stuff. And it's bad for the environment, probably, and gives him wind. I hope it does. He was banging on about the problem of social networking and the internet causing lots of people to think different ideas and making them very difficult to govern. Yes, John. And he literally, you just look at them and you go, they can't see it. They're never going to see this, what we're seeing. They cannot see it. And I mentioned here before, if you were unfortunate enough to be invited to a meeting of these chumps and sit down and provide coherent, intelligent, clear communications about the concerns that we have, like, why are you all a bunch of idiots or whatever, not that you would phrase it like that, they would not be able to hear anything that you say. It's literally, it is an illness. They are locked into their worldview and them being in that position. And everything else is secondary to that. And you couldn't possibly think of things more cleverly or intelligently than us. And this is because their orientation is to retain their position. I know I'm only saying cliches here, but it's true, and it's worth saying them again. That's what their orientation is.
It's like the parable with, or it's when Jesus met the rich man, and the rich man said, "How do I enter the kingdom of heaven?" And he says, Sell all your riches and then come and follow me. Mm-hmm. And then the guy went away sad. The rich man went away sad. And then after that, he said, it's easier for a camel to enter the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to enter into heaven. So, and that's probably because they can't listen. They don't listen to the poor and the needs of the other people besides themselves.
Yeah.
There's only one... Can you know and think of any politician that's actually achieved anything, though? Because what type of person would spend their life waffling all day? Because all they do is just use bovine excrement, and it's just waffle.
The more I learn about Karl Lueger back in Austria and Vienna back at the turn of the century in the 1800s to 1900s, the more I think that he had something going on that could have been better, could have, if it had been carried on, it would have been something that benefited the people. But he was demonized to the point where nobody even knows his name anymore.
He's bound to be.
So these politicians exist.
Yeah, he's bound to be. I mean, it's like we've said before, I guess, that if there were a cluster of decent people, the present company included, who managed to get into power, how long would you be able to hang on to it? Because we are ploughing a furrow that they're not used to, nor do they want to go in it, because all they would see coming up is a reduction in their power and influence, to which we would say, well, yeah, because you haven't worked out yet that your use of your power and influence is the main problem cursing the whole of the nation. You're not very good at this. You're very good at keeping your position. You're not very good at doing what the job description possibly is or was, which is to make the nation flourish. You don't do that. You put it into wars. You lay taxation weights on people that are not necessary. You're incapable of understanding the true things that drive families and where the joy in life is. You've got a warped mentality. It's understandable.
They become Malthusians. And they
all do that, don't they? They're all Malthusians. There's too many people. We're not going to be able to and we've got to work hard on all this kind of stuff. And it's simply a matter of clarity about where the priorities lie. But I don't think these people are capable of becoming clear. Are they? They're not really. They can't become clear.
Like they're heroes. What they publish as heroes. I was reading something about Florence Nightingale, who was the lady with the lamp during the Korean, not Korean, what am I talking about? Crimean War in the Victorian times. Apparently, she killed more soldiers than almost anyone else because she's bloody filthy, absolutely filthy. And the British Army,
what do you mean?
Army medical people had to move in and clean things up because she was so bad. But she was deemed as a heroine, a marvellous lady, you know, Florence Nightingale, marvellous nurse who nursed these poor soldiers. Poor sods would have probably been better. They're not going to her hospital than staying in the field than going in her hospital. Because apparently their chance of survival was 50-50, literally 50%.
It's like the vaccinators these days.
Yeah, yeah. But then you look at any children's book from the 60s, 70s, the Ladybird books. Do you get them in the States, Ladybird books? For
no,
children?
we had Ladybird Johnson, who was the first lady under Lyndon Johnson in the 60s.
Well, we had Ladybird books, and they're these sort of like beautiful illustrations of them, but, you know, telling you how marvellous these people were, you know, like Jimmy Savile. No, they didn't do one Jimmy Savile. But, you know, like Florence Nightingale, what a marvellous lady she was. And who's that bloke that went out to Africa? I can't think of his name now.
Livingston?
Yeah, him. How marvellous he was, and things like that.
Not Ken Livingstone.
No, he didn't go to Africa.
Not the ex-mayor of
He's
London.
mined in Africa. Yes.
Or Cecil Rhodes.
Rhodesia and things like that. You know, but when you think about it, all the people that are like Churchill, oh, what a marvellous man. All you got to do is hold your lapel, look up and say, a great man. No, he wasn't. And when you look at all these superheroes, they weren't heroes. They were just pumped up by the establishment. They're establishment heroes who we're told are heroes. No, they're not. I remember when I was at school, we were told that Queen Victoria was fantastic. What a marvellous queen she was. She gave to the poor. People hated her. She had several, I think she had, was it 4 or 5 assassination attempts? They detested her so much, you know.
Well, it's like the celebrity culture here in Hollywood and that sort of thing. It seems like they lift them up just to smash them down in the end. You know, we have all these celebrities that end up, you know, causing scandal later in their career, and then it just destroys it. And we're supposed to look up to them as great people, but then they end up being monsters in their personal life.
Well, I think we're weaning ourselves off of this, aren't we? Because we've got the knowledge base that we've built up to begin to see things over these past 15, 20 years or so, this century, courtesy of the technology that we've got, to readjust our views of these things. And people have got much more robust and clearer views than they had, or views with far less mistakes in them. I'm not saying that everything's mistake-free. That wouldn't be true, but it's it's a lot of more clarity has existed. There's still points that could be talked about, but I think focusing on what we can do, I mean, how much more do we need to know? We're getting the basic principles pretty clear, and it is worth repeating them. And then having something positive and constructive to do. All I know is it makes me feel like I did when I was younger and feeling kind of optimistic about things. You could say, well, this is ridiculous. You're just putting your head in the sand. I'm going, well, what else do we do? You want to just sit around and become so miserable looking at apparently all these things that they are about to do. What about all the things that we are about to do? There's that word again, right. You know. Let's look at what we are about to do, and we can become a problem for them by not interacting with them and doing things like building blast furnaces and helping local farmers, and then we get fed, and then we keep working. And the more of us that get better fed and work in a team, there'll be more and more of a skill set there across the group of people, he said in a sort of utopian type way, but there'll be people who have a natural aptitude for dealing with rebutting the paperwork of the existing system. There are people like that who are very good at it and love it and great. And you'll always find some kind of little niche of knowledge that someone will be good at and loves doing, and it's identifying that so that we create these spaces where people can contribute back to all of us in a much easier way. And one of the key things is to get people de-addicted from money. Money's the problem because everything is, the whole compulsion is I've got to pay my bills at the end of the month. So anything that we can work at to reduce the number of those bills, to reduce the size of them by providing the services directly to ourselves. I know they're going to come out and send their bully boys around, but it's a process. And we go, yeah, look, I used to pay this every month, but now I don't pay that. And I don't need to use their money. That's what this is all about. They have to keep you using their money because they've turned, I think drug addiction is a good analogy. Drug addicts need more and more of a drug the longer that they're addicted to it to get the same hit. It's exactly the same with money. You need more of it, don't you? Because of the inflation or the way that the whole system is being built to keep you going like the hamster in the wheel, and therefore we need more growth. I'm fed up with the growth. I've been doing that. We don't need any more. Can we stop now? No, we're going to compel you because what happens if the banking system collapses? We'll all be happier. No, that's the wrong answer. We'll be, we can't boss you around anymore. Well, we didn't want that in the first place. So,
well, sometimes they didn't even know they wanted that in the first place.
But in the Victorian times, people used to pay good money to go around the lunatic asylum and have a good laugh. Seriously, they used to do that. You used to, pay the bloke who...
They used to have a human zoo,
too. Lunatic asylum. Yeah, they'd have a laugh. Well, you think what we've got today... We've got these loonies in the World Economic Forum and that. They're there to be laughed at. They're loonies. We can knock the power out of them because of one thing that psychopaths don't understand and don't have and they're frightened of is humour. And we just need to laugh at them. Just continue to laugh at them. That'll bring their power base down. They're getting power because we take them seriously. We shouldn't take them seriously.
It reminds me of a passage in the Psalms. There's a passage in the Psalms that goes something like, "The wicked gnash their teeth while God laughs at them."
Yeah, that's it. Just laugh at them. Can you imagine if we all stood? We can't stand outside number 10 anymore, but near the gate, and just roared ourselves laughing at them.
Well, maybe that's something to organise, Eric. A mass laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to find out sort of like Friday lunchtime when they're all piling out to go to the pub or something at 11:30 a.m. in Parliament Square. We're all going to stand and laugh out the Houses of Parliament very, very loud. Yeah.
And mass civil disobedience. Polite, peaceful civil disobedience. No, I'm not going to pay that. No, I'm not going to do this. Why should we do this and do that and pay this and pay that? No, we're not going to do it. It's like, for example, I was talking about the water bill. That's all. Everything is going up. That is inflation. Why is there inflation? Well, it's so that the government rob you of your money to pay off the blooming scam, the usury scam. That's it. Full stop. End of. And I'll keep on about it, but the fact is, until we end usury, it's going to carry on like this. Mass inflation. Crash and boom,
until we stop following. The thing of it is people fall for the usury. They think that they need to take out that loan in order to buy the house or whatever property they need to buy, and that becomes their life. They're enslaved to it. And
I think there's many things that we should probably be running in parallel, and in fact we just will, because we're all individuals. We all have different areas of focus. So there is room, and it doesn't matter what I say. This will carry on. There's always going to be people that have to rebut or address or attack the garbage that's emitting out of the mouths of these would-be rulers, and that's needed. That's in addition to that, as well as we need communications, which we're having today about building blast furnaces. I'm just using it as a metaphor for doing something constructive. We need that. We need the community builders. We need all of this kind of stuff going on. It seems to me that they can, I don't mind them having their money system. I just mind that everybody around me uses it. I don't mind them having it. I mean, if they really want it, if they talk about competition, for example, well, let's compete then. We'll come up with a money system.
They don't want that.
No.
Well, it's like the Rockefellers. The saying was that by John D. Rockefeller that competition is a sin, is a mortal sin.
Well, because it removes the opportunity for him to control it all, you see.
Yeah, exactly.
But the ultimate objective of capitalism is communism, because you've then got rid of all your opposition. Whereas free enterprise is something completely different. I'm for free enterprise. Free enterprise, you get very creative with it. But with capitalism, no, you just ruthlessly destroy everybody else to get to the top. That's a big difference.
Yeah. And then the political corruption is just such that the poor people get vampirized, and they have no advocate. They have no law on their side. They don't have advocates trying to help them out, piecemeal type of deal, where you get these benevolent lawyers like they should be or could be, but instead they're the ones levying the fines against them. Creating the new laws, going into Congress. Most of these Congress critters end up. So they start out as lawyers going to law school, and then they end up in Congress for some reason because they can make more money. They can victimize more people.
It's like a process for us here. We, clusters of people at local level, let's just use that phrase for now, acquiring an immune system. We don't have one. Yeah, we need an immune system.
So much quicker.
Yeah.
Right. So someone gets on the radio and says, "Hey, I've got a problem," and then the other guy calls up into the radio station and says, "Hey, I went through the same stuff with the same judge or with the same people, and this is what they did to me. So let's strategize what to do back to find justice."
There's so many things like that, so that we can become stronger little cells everywhere, so that we're not at the effect of these things that they emit from their mouths. And it's because of the centralization of power, this process, of course, which is, democracy is all part of it. It's slow burn communism is democracy. Some might disagree, but I think that's what it is. Because it all becomes... It's, you don't have a choice. Oh, I'm sorry. In America, you do have a choice. You've got Kamala Harris or Donald Trump.
Well, we don't have a choice. That's just it. That goes back to the whole Charles Lindbergh thing back before the Federal Reserve came in. He was advocating to get rid of the Electoral College and have a direct vote of the presidency, a direct primary, so that the people decided, not this elite group of, like in the Democrat Party, it's the super delegates, and they get to determine who is the nominee in their party. And then they go on, and it becomes the electors. And each state has only a few handful of electors that actually choose who the president is. It's not the popular vote. The popular vote gets to decide, which party gets to decide the electors, and that's about it. And then get rid of the Senate. We don't need a Senate where you have these lifetime actors like Chuck Schumer and all these other clowns determining things, and then the vice president sitting in there like Kamala Harris is the vice president. Now, we don't need the vice presidency. Get rid of the Senate, get rid of the vice presidency. We have a House of Representatives that are all directly elected by people and each state. And these contests would be more viable. You get greater quality people running because they know that they have a chance to be in the club, so to speak, and control.
I guess. I would tend to see it going as well, if it's done healthily, that the urge, let's call it that people may have for the idea of presidents and prime ministers and all that kind of stuff goes. It disappears. That's the problem. There's kind of we need one of those. Well, have you had a look at the track record of these sorts of things? Is it any good? No, it's not. Whereas if you're working on a local basis, and of course this is part of bringing people to a point where saying, look, there is a solution. It involves you and me and everybody else acquiring an ever greater degree of responsibility. An alien concept, which of course has been drummed out of our culture.
Again, not everybody can be responsible. Everybody's got a different condition and state in life, and some people have a greater state and ability than other people, and can fend for themselves and other people.
They do.
And those are the people that need to be drawn out and put into the places of power. But instead, we've got incompetent people who end up getting their position because they happen to be wealthy and have more dollars than other people.
Yeah, they're round the trough. It's that whole thing with the banking thing is the poison that spreads into everything. And you're right. I mean, there will be people that won't be up to certain things at certain times in their life. But if you have a culture, given that we get back to a culture which stresses that, which supports that, which communicates it regularly and repeatedly, then the behavior through time, people can begin to recover that sensibility about things. I mean, there's so many, it's as if you listen to people today, it's as if they can't imagine how the people in the past even coped. How did they actually deal with things? They didn't have phones. This kind of pathetic understanding of what life is all about is all become down to a series of sort of little technical doodads, or being nice to everyone. And those people in the past, this is the whole thing about the attack on our race. Oh, all those other people that you come from, they were so evil. They went around the world and did all these terrible things. Stick it up your backside. It was just absolutely ridiculous. Of course, bad things happen. They happen with everybody, right? The litmus test would be, how would you have behaved if you'd been there? Because you're a dork now, and I expect you would be a dork back then as well, Yeah. But
unless you learn by experience.
You do. And life is going to be tough, and it's never going to get easy, and there is no ultimate technical solutions to anything, because the main problem is this sort of interaction in terms of whose will dominate. Well, it's got to be the Almighty's if we want peace. Or to the predominant degree. There's always room for down. We know this. The hellish periods in history have shown it all the time. So, but the idea of doing constructive things. Anyway, I banged on about this a bit, but it's true, and I like banging on about it because I think we're going to have to bang on about it right until the very end. And then the next generation have got to bang on about it and do things about it, and we've got a lot of resources. Anyway, we'll take a break. Earlier in the show, on Rumble, Maleficus rocked up, and must have been having a discussion or something, because I got a little message through, and he's got a tune, a song that he's been working on. He says it's a rough demo, 5 minutes long, so we're gonna take a little break, and then we'll be back for the last half hour or so. And he can probably it says here Ashes Troan, Troan. I've probably mullered the pronunciation.
That's his studio.
Is that right?
Studios.
Ashes. Yep. All right. So this is. I don't know if it has a song title, but this is the Ashes Troan studio offering from Maleficus, and we'll take a break. It's a rough cut, he says, or a rough demo. So we'll listen through. It's about 5 minutes long. We'll join you after this.
I was sitting
And that was from Maleficus. A rough demo, he says. Sounded not so rough to me. So, Maleficus, if you've typed anything in the chat, everybody hop into the Rumble chat. You might have written something about the creative process behind that song. But that was fun to do that. So, anybody else out there, if you get stuff from time to time, you can always send it through to us. And we will play it. How about that? And as we get overloaded, we'll have to move into bigger and bigger shows, something that Patrick is familiar with all the music he's mustering. But thanks for that, Maleficus. That's great. And keep us posted with any more creative offerings. We'll put them in. Kind of fitted the mood here for a late night type thing in the UK, possibly a little bit too relaxing for you in America in the middle of the afternoon, but I don't know. But there we go.
Oh, that's nice. After a hard day's work, listen to some mellow music. Good stuff. He actually introduced me to what he was using for a slide.
Yeah,
for the guitar.
Did he?
It's this really neat invention called a jet slide, and it's not like the traditional thing where it's like a glass bottle neck that you put over your finger to do the blues slide type.
Oh yeah,
guitar.
I know about that. Yeah.
It's more like a ring that fits over your ring finger or whatever finger you choose to use, and then it's got a piece of like a couple to few millimeter diameter wire that goes up, and then you can use it, and then you can kind of slide it away on the side of your finger when you just want to use your fingers. So it leaves your fingertips open, and then you can just move back and forth from it. Really cool invention. They're called the jet slide.
All right, okay. Well, lots of positive comments in the chat there, Maleficus, so you need to go and read those, and then you can bask in the glory of that, but that's good. Yeah, it was great. It's good stuff, so keep me posted. We'll play those. This is good stuff. It's great to do it. A late night feel. I hope you all got your cocoa ready here in the UK and all that kind of stuff, but that was great.
I see in the chat, Paul, sorry.
Well, he was. I did invite him to come
Tony
in.
Manetti. Manetti.
Yeah,
he's from Appalachia. I wonder if he experienced any of the hurricane. Anyway, shout out to him.
Yeah,
Tony.
Shout out to you, Tony. So you've been spotted in the chat, even if you are in Appalachia. You did mention it, so there we go. That was great. Yeah. Changing the subject a bit. Today's show image, of course, I knew it was going to be completely incongruous. The background.
He's looking at you, kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Ingrid Bergman looks absolutely delightful, and Humphrey's very, very smart in that. And of course, I did put that really rather silly comment: kissing, is it better with the bow tie? I wouldn't really know, because I've actually I must have kissed a girl with a bow tie once. When did I last wear a bow tie? It's not that often. Maybe I'll put one on tomorrow and go out and ask someone for a kiss and see if it's any good.
Well, the girl wore a bow tie. You kissed a girl, because I thought this was going to be a bit tongue in cheek. You see this?
Did you?
Show.
Start steady.
Yes. But I guess the girl wore. I've never kissed a girl wearing a bow tie.
No. The background story to it was I was out on Tuesday with some roustabouts, and we were talking about things, talking about films and stuff. And this came up as a favourite. I'll tell you the background story too. The first film I was just talking about, you ever seen a film by Alfred Hitchcock? Many people will, I suppose. Rear Window, starring James Stewart and Grace Kelly.
He's a cripple.
He's a cripple. You ever seen it, Eric? Do you know the film I'm talking about?
Yes, I've seen it. Yes, years ago. I can't remember what it's about.
It's shot in that sort of really bright sort of Panavision colour of the 1950s or whatever. I think he did a clutch of films at the time with the same sort of production crew. There was that, and he also did Vertigo with James Stewart and Kim Novak in it, which I haven't yet seen. I thought I was looking for it.
Spellbound?
Might have.
Okay.
But my sort of quote or comment really with regards to Rear Window, it's an odd sort of film in the sense that 95% of it is shot all in that room. So if you haven't seen it, basically Jimmy Stewart is a roving photojournalist, but he's not roving anywhere at the moment because he's broken his leg. So he's got his whole leg in plaster and he's in this wheelchair and he's looking out, and it's very hot in New York. And he's like a voyeur in a way. He's got these binoculars and this telescope and stuff, and he's just looking out into this sort of enclosed apartment complex. And he's looking. You see all these different people. There's the nubile dancer and all this, that, and the other. And there's the rowing couple, and there's Miss Lonely Hearts, and then there is a very creepy figure played by Raymond Burr, and that's all part of the plot. But the reason I mention the film is that Grace Kelly is in it, and I don't know why I'm mentioning this. It's because I saw it maybe a week ago. When she enters the film, she comes into the apartment, but Jimmy Stewart at the time is asleep. He's fallen asleep in the early evening, and she comes in, and she looks amazing, and is dressed in the amazing way I think that ladies used to dress in the 50s, this wonderful dress and all this kind of stuff. And she leans down and gives him a kiss. I didn't describe that very well. You've got to see it. It's very difficult to describe. Hitchcock uses slow motion for the kiss. It slows down as she leans down to kiss him. And I think it's the best kiss I ever saw on screen ever. It was just about kissing, which is why I put the thing. Anyway, whilst we were talking about this, someone at the table mentioned Casablanca as being a great love story, which of course it is. It's a great other story. So, casting about for an image for today's show and not talking about this at all, and we don't even have to, because the images have got nothing to do necessarily with the content. It's just to find something interesting. But I thought that was quite a good encapsulation of Casablanca, which is, of course, a cracking film. And Ingrid Bergman is, of course, eminently kissable if you're a man. At the time, I'm sure maybe Humphrey Bogart was eminently kissable if you're a lady and that kind of stuff. But it's a wonderfully sort of bittersweet love story. Many of you, of course, maybe everybody's seen it by now. But it stands up pretty well. Yeah.
He didn't say play it again, Sam. Everybody said, he says, no, he doesn't. He says, Sam, play it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that everybody gets wrong. They think he said play. He didn't say play it again, Sam. Never did.
No.
Yeah.
No, and that's the little background to why it's that picture tonight. We've not, of course, talked about trench coats or bow ties much, or kissing, or being in Casablanca or anything. It's got nothing to do with it. But just going back to
coats.
I do. I just like the way people used to dress. Men and women used to dress really in the 40s and the 50s into the early 60s. Really, it was all pretty good, and we'll have to get back to that. You know, we have to define ourselves to some degree by that. So
I think they're coming back, because I've seen quite a few people wearing trench coats now. So I think they're coming back. I like them. You know,
yeah, they're good. They're good. Something about Hitchcock as well. I know he's a bit of a perv and stuff and all that. There's all these sort of lurid tales of him. I think we might have mentioned this, and even had a brief chat about it a few shows back. But on the plus side, there's something in terms of being able to wind tension into a film. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen, what's the first one? The 39 Steps that he did with Robert Donat. You remember that? You ever seen that? It's about 1935 or something, black and white movie with sound. It's just, it's like this helter, it's so fast. It's just got this tremendous speed and energy to it. And he manages to create an effect in your head by doing nothing. There's that fantastic scene from North by Northwest, where Cary Grant gets off the bus, that whole sequence. He gets off the bus and he gets sort of dive bombed by the crop spraying biplane.
In Iowa.
Yeah. It's worth watching that over and over again. It's so slow. The bus pulls up. Yeah, there's no music. There's no music. It's just flat, still camera looking down on the bus stop, and it's just why is everything so wham bam smash in films? They're unsatisfying. They don't know how to build up tension, and tension's what it's all about. It's not about the gore and all that kind of stuff. That's just silly. But the tension, the expectation of something, is an amazing thing.
And the sex scene. The sex scene that didn't happen, the one where he goes round, and I can't remember the lady he was with, gives her a kiss, and the next thing you see a train going into the tunnel, and he's on a train. So it just used your imagination, and I
can see that you did, Eric.
Brilliant. yes, I'm dirty sod. Yes, I think these. Is
that in North by Northwest that you're referring to? That scene is.
Yes.
That's Eve. Oh, what's her name now? She's so hypnotic in that film. It's Eve. Oh, I can't remember the fast bit.
So was Tippi Hedren in The Birds.
The Birds.
I mean, the birds, the dicky birds. Because apparently she did get pecked by birds because they had live birds as well as stuffed ones. So, but it was very clever film, very, very clever how they did that. But I have to admit, Hitchcock was pretty good because he also did a film that was set in the old Covent Garden in London.
Yep.
And it shows you Covent Garden as it was. It's all gone now. It's all been flattened. It's all, office blocks or whatever. But he did the longest, what's that shot when they have a camera on a boom? The longest boom shot that's ever been done.
Yeah.
Where the camera goes straight into the house and up the stairs and around. It's really clever.
Which film are you talking about?
That was the one that's, I'm not sure what the title was, but it was filmed in the old Covent Garden in London in the early 70s.
Oh, really?
I can't. Yeah,
oh, I know.
I can't remember.
Frenzy?
Absolute Beginners.
Oh.
The film you're talking about is Absolute Beginners. You mean the longest opening tracking
Hitchcock?
shot to a film? No, it was
a Hitchcock film. It's a Hitchcock film.
Oh,
he did it.
Well,
he did
I'm
two
thinking of
two in the 70s. It was Frenzy and Family Plot. I'm looking at his filmography right now.
Okay, I don't know about that one.
Hang on, let's have a look.
We've all gone a bit nerdy, haven't we, about films?
Well, that's like Ingrid Bergman. I was reading. She was in that movie Gaslight.
Yes, she was.
Which was where we get the term getting gaslighted.
Yeah.
We're pretending, telling somebody that they're insane until the point where they start believing.
Well, being a cinema nerd, I'm actually not a cinema nerd, but there is a film called Touch of Evil by Orson Welles, which you may know. It's got Charlton Heston playing a Mexican and Marlene Dietrich's in it, possibly her last appearance on film. And Welles plays this very fat, corrupt Texas-Mexico border U.S. detective.
Sorry.
And he's very well made up, and he's just quite
in
repulsive.
Black and white.
Yeah, it's a black and white film.
Beautiful.
The opening shot to that, when it was made, and for very many years after, was the longest single take ever in film history. It's very long. It's just one take, and it's about 2.5 minutes long, this thing. So I don't know how they worked it all out, but it works perfect. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's in black, and it's got this wonderful heavy atmosphere about it. It's quite a film. But the guy that made Absolute Beginners, which was absolutely average and everything, he wanted to outdo that. This is in the 80s. I've got a British director, a young guy, had been directing sort of music videos at the time. So he did one even longer, which is, of course, not as good. But it was longer, so he goes in the Guinness Book of Records for the longest opening tracking shot.
Touch of Evil was filmed at night most of the time. I think Touch of Evil was a nighttime movie.
Yeah.
Which adds to the atmosphere.
But the film I'm talking about is Frenzy, and that was filmed in Covent Garden in July 1971 and released in 1972. And that had a very, very long tracking shot.
I've never seen that. I've never seen those last two that he made. I want to, now that you mentioned it, I'm going to have to watch that one.
Which one, clever, Patrick, are you going to watch?
Frenzy from
I've never seen that. Was that his last film ever?
It was in color.
Oh, yeah.
It was in, I mean, Birds and that were in color and North by Northwest, but.
What about the one where the girl's in the shower and all you see is Psycho, where you just see the blood running down? Use your imagination, because he said people have got to use their imagination. He actually manipulated people's imagination. Very clever.
Vivian Leigh. Her daughter was what's her face from the Halloween movies?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my mum and dad wouldn't let me watch Psycho. It was on TV about 1967 or something, or 68. The BBC had it on. Can I watch it, Mum? No, you can't watch it. It terrified. Their anxiety about me not watching it really terrified me about it more than it. Oh, I can't watch that. It's really bad. And they were all talking about it. Oh, that bit where the detective goes up the stairs. They all hated that. It's amazing. It's still a damn good film.
It's based off of Ed Gein.
Yes,
and I hate to admit he was from Wisconsin.
Oh, dear.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't need to tell us that.
Oh, I know. I didn't, but I did.
So is he the mascot of Wisconsin? Probably not. No.
Yeah, right. Of serial killers.
Yeah, yeah, he was.
Well, wait. He was outdone by Jeffrey Dahmer, who was even worse.
Yeah.
Milwaukee. Okay, these people are from Milwaukee or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's too close to Chicago.
Yeah, too close to Chicago.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've had a jolly good run tonight. It's been fun. We have. I didn't have too much lined up tonight, but then generally with us lot, we don't really need too much, do we? It's good. I've been following, I know I mentioned him last week, by the way, just a shout out again to Mads Palsvig on Eggs, or Twitter. Eggs, I think we call it now, don't we? Eggs.
Yeah, eggs.
Eggs, farm eggs, fresh farm eggs. Writing more cracking stuff. The banksters funding Bolshevism and defeating the Germans are still in power. Yes. The good guys lost World War II. Yes. Valiantly defending us against the devil-worshipping, Talmud-following, bankster-controlled Allied forces and Red Army. Yes. And on that happy note... So, yeah, didn't go into too much of the old history. By the way, I'm still reading Goebbels, just as a wrap-up here, last sort of 5 or 10 minutes. Still reading Goebbels, this wonderful book by David Irving. Very revealing. Really, really revealing in all sorts of ways, particularly the fraught relationship at times between Goebbels and Hitler and so on and so forth. It's such...
Really?
Yeah. It's all directed from his diaries. He was after getting total power, was Goebbels. And when you read his diaries, you have to think that he probably should have had, if he'd have had it a bit earlier, he might have actually, because he was ruthless. There's no two ways about it. I mean, he's absolutely ruthless. He's emotionally disinterested in the welfare of his wife. It's all quite sad and tragic, really. And then he's a sort of an emotional wreck at other times. He gives up smoking, takes it up again when they're all getting bombed to bits and all this kind of stuff. He's absolutely scathing about most of the generals, as was Adolf. And it's this division, in a way, between the intensity of the actual political movement and the kind of languid indifference. This is how it comes across, certainly his diaries. I'm sure it's not in, I'd have to read more accounts, but I'm certainly, this is the impact from his point of view of some of the generals and stuff. And he felt that they weren't fighting hard enough. So what he was calling for is a thing called total war, is what he wanted. And what he means by that is to get every single person in the nation enlisted in the war effort. And many weren't. And yet I had that impression that they all would have been, but it's not the case. And he felt, certainly, they'd done that. There was a bit where he said he could get 1 million men in 3 months if he gave them the power to do it, to actually swell the Wehrmacht, I'm not suggesting that this would have been a good thing. They would probably come off on the bad end of it anyway. But when the war turns at Stalingrad, and they've got a lot of false optimism, they just puts it down, it's just a bad setback. Not really reading it for what it was. It's fascinating. But when I was reading the bit about total war, I thought, to some degree, this is what we require too. Total peace is what we require. Getting everybody enlisted in building a blast furnace.
Well, in hindsight, though, he might have had a point there, because after those Rhine Meadow camps, when they sacrificed 1 million Germans,
yep, they
might have been better off fighting, instead of just letting them come in and kill them and starve them to death.
Yeah, they weren't as well organized necessarily as we think. They were pretty well organized, but not as well as they could have been. And you get from Goebbels' diary that he saw how to organize and get way, way more out of the nation than they got. And that there was a kind of slowness in decision-making. And some of the generals gave up. Like a year before it even ended, and he hated them for it, and he's like the coach, basically looking at everything, going, "I've got everything I need, but I can't organize it because there's all these other people in the way."
They don't gel together. The people didn't. That's the whole thing I'm reading about Luger, and Hitler kind of looked up to him, but at the same time he didn't like what he was doing because he thought he was too soft. He wanted to get the German, pan-German mixed with the Christian socialist movement. But they couldn't, because two groups of people that didn't get along, the Protestants and the Catholics.
Yeah.
And to get them to coordinate with each other was almost impossible, and that's where they fell up, because they couldn't have the communication between the two groups. They couldn't fight up anybody coming in from a third party, the Allies and the Soviets.
Yeah. Well, these frictions between human beings are eternal. There's nothing really new under the sun. I know we're facing different sort of physical circumstances. There's different technological circumstances in terms of communications, etc., etc. But in terms of really becoming a powerful we, it's tricky. It is like herding cats. It possibly it always will be with our people. This is not. I'm not laying blame. I'm just observing it. I'm suffer from it as well. We all get pretty strong-minded about things, which 5 years later we can't understand why we did.
Siegfried and Roy. We need to get that mentality, I suppose.
What,
herding cats?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, didn't one of them die,
You know
though?
who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I know.
Is that your joke?
You're right.
One of them
Maybe that's a bad analogy.
One of his tigers killed him. That's really bad.
Well,
I was trying to
probably the analogy we got.
me.
It's probably...
Yeah, I got a bit lost there with that one. Quite fun though. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll look at team building next week. Did everybody's just in a cell pucker up? Let's do some team building. That kind of stuff.
What about the problem with my pregnant iPad? I've got an iPad, an Apple iPad that's pregnant. What's happened? They put a new battery in it and it's swelling. so the screen's sort of coming away from the base.
Is it really?
Bigger and bigger. Yeah.
I bet it is.
I hope it don't blow up or anything or catch fire.
Time for a new one.
Yeah.
Stop charging it.
Yeah, I mean, it's iPad 3, so it's a few years old. Yeah.
I had that problem. I thought I could fix it. I gave it to my brother who works on those things, and he as he was taking the screen off, he was going to replace the battery. But as he was pulling it off, it somehow punctured the battery and it exploded on him. So just like the exploding pagers, you don't want to be messing with those. And I'd put it down or bring it to an Apple store and have them put it in. But don't mess with it. Turn the power off and
unplug it.
Get it repaired.
Don't charge it.
Dispose of it.
It's not worth being repaired. And then what happened? The battery went in and I replaced the battery. It's the replacement battery that's pregnant. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, it's going to explode if you're not careful. So be careful.
Stop buying your batteries on eBay.
Amazon.
On eBay.
Yeah. Guys, aren't you glad that you're you? I think
I'm glad that I'm me. Oh, you got that one.
Yeah. So we're going to play out with a bit of cringe Bosby. No, Bing Crosby. Aren't you glad you're you? A few words after we're end of the show. It's been a lot of fun. We'll play out with this. A few words after this. Here we go.
Every time you're near a rose, aren't you glad you've got a nose? And if the dawn is fresh with dew, aren't you glad you're you? When a meadowlark appears, aren't you glad you've got two ears? And if your heart is singing too, aren't you glad you're you? You can see a summer sky, or touch a friendly hand, or taste an apple pie. Pardon the grammar, but ain't life grand? And when you wake up each morn, aren't you glad that you were born? Think what you've got the whole day through. Aren't you glad you're you? every time you're near a rose. Aren't you glad you've got a nose? And if the dawn is fresh with dew, aren't you glad you're you? When the meadowlark appears, aren't you glad you've got two ears? And if your heart is singing too, aren't you glad you're you? You can see a summer sky, or touch a friendly hand, or taste an apple pie. Pardon the grammar, but ain't life grand? And when you wake up each morn, aren't you glad that you were born? Think what you got the whole day through. Aren't you glad you're you?
Aren't you glad you're you? You've just spent 3 hours in the delightful company of Paul and Eric and Patrick and Chaps. Any final words before you go and get your cocoa or go out and do whatever you're going to do in the States?
We should quit mentioning that. I don't have any cocoa. I have no beer. I have no alcohol. I have no cocoa. I have nothing.
Okay, everybody, chip in and let's all send some cocoa to Paul for next week. I can't stand the idea you haven't got any cocoa. And some toffees. Send him some toffees and some cocoa, and then everything will be great. You know, be good.
Yes, it'll be
whatever happens. Have a laugh. That's my motto. Always have a laugh. Best medicine.
Oh,
ever.
that's
unless
good.
you've got diarrhea, of course.
I don't know. That can be quite funny, actually, can't it?
Yes,
it can.
All right. Whatever happens, build a blast furnace.
Whatever happens, build. Yeah, have a cup of cocoa, get some toffees, build a blast furnace, and have a bloody good laugh. And on those great pearls of wisdom, we will end the show for this week. We'll be back, of course, again at the same time next Thursday. Have a cracking week in between, and we'll keep you posted on other developments when we get back to you here behind the microphones next Thursday. So that's it for this week. Go good, keep well, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now, everyone. Bye-bye.
That night. Bye.